We're going to start with a roll call.
Right, ready? Representative Adams?
Here.
Bailey?
Here.
Bauer? Bauer?
Oh, here.
Bordelon?
Here.
Casper?
Here.
Chase?
Here.
Sini?
Here.
Doyle? Frickman?
Here.
Gustafson?
Here.
Hanscom? Katowski? Marley? Marshall?
Here.
Martin?
Here.
Massett?
Here.
McDermott?
Here.
Melendez?
Here.
Mello Miller?
Here.
Merritt?
Here.
Monahan?
Here.
Newsom?
Here.
Oliver? Pasqualini? Perry?
Here.
Powers?
Here.
Quinn? Richards?
Here.
Rogers?
Here.
Stanford?
Here.
Streeter Irma?
Here.
Streeter James?
Here.
Strode? Wagner? Washington? Wells?
Here.
Whitehouse?
Here.
Whitney? Eben?
Here.
30 at roll. Before we go on, I'd like to just let you know that when you leave, you've got to really make sure that I see you, or Dawn sees you, or the moderator sees you, because if you sneak out, we could have a mistake with our roll if I don't know that you're gone for a vote, okay?
So we're at 30?
We're at 30.
So we do have a quorum. That's terrific. And I do want to just start out with, sorry, Scott, we just have to do the web design thing first. Take a seat. So I just want to note that Representative Whitney, Wagner, and Oliver have noted that they are unable to attend tonight. And then I did want to recognize Representative Monahan, who wished to address the body on account 1091, which is what we did at our last meeting on May 3.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. For those of you who remember Gilda Radner in the early Saturday Night Live episodes, this is my Emily Latella moment. I spent some time over the weekend rereading the legal opinions from 2010 and 2003, and I've come to the conclusion that, in fact, as a matter of law, the town, the RTM doesn't really have the authority to act on that, in spite of my wishes. So I apologize for sidetracking us for an hour or however long it took to do my fault. But I do think, though, in the future, perhaps we shouldn't consider it at all, or we should abstain as the RTM, because to me, the law does not like to silly acts that have no meaning. So for that purpose, thank you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you, Representative Monahan. So I have a few other, two other points. One is that I want to ask that we not recess until we approve the minutes tonight of Public Works, because the way we're doing this is we're trying to, have a bullet read and then act on that item, and then at the end we need to approve those minutes. So do not recess until we have approved these minutes, okay? And so because we did not approve the minutes that we heard, I would like to start with a motion.
We do have one more piece to that.
Oh, we have one more piece. We actually are going to start out with one more piece of those minutes, and then we'll move those minutes. So I apologize. This was not put on the agenda for our last meeting, but it is a finance committee account for web design. I don't know what count it is.
It's 7J. CIPs 7J, and it's on page 231. 231?
In the back of Appendix B, I believe.
81.
Oh, it's 81? Okay.
Page 81?
Appendix B.
This is a portion of the April 25th Finance Committee meeting minutes. where a vote in favor, let's see, a motion to add 7J website design to the agenda for $50,000 by Representative Casper, and was seconded by Representative Martin. And the vote in favor to add the 7J website redesign to the agenda was in favor with Washington, Martin, Casper, and McDermott, and opposed by Kotowski. Discussion, Jerry Loken explained to the committee that originally the town council had decided not to fund the website design. I don't think it was it Jerry that? Yeah. Okay. The town council later added this item back to their agenda for $50,000. The IT department would like to hire a consultant to help redesign the town website. The current website is hard to navigate, is limited to size for uploading postings, and not appealing. The town's webpage was designed 17 years ago. They're using the same program today. The IT department is having a hard time finding an internet service provider that is able to support the webpage classic ASP programming. Soon the support for the software will be discontinued. Representative Martin asked if there is a cost to maintain as is. IT manager responded that the cost is staff time. Rep. McDermott said that he has used a lot of the town's website, and they are pretty poor. How are we going to make sure our website is better? IT manager stated that if it will be designed to be modern, user-friendly, forms will be designed to be fillable PDFs and emailable to proper departments. They will keep the information updated and fresh. The different departments could be responsible for posting information on their own web pages. Representative Kotowski made a motion for 0, seconded by Representative McDermott. Discussion. Representative Kotowski concerned about always using a consultant, tax increases, and layoff of staff. Representative Washington moved $35,000, seconded by Representative Martin. Vote in favor of $35,000. Representative Washington, McDermott, Martin, opposed, Casper and Kotowski. $35,000 passed. That's it. Would you like approval of the minutes?
Yes, so we have the minutes.
I can't make the
Can I make the motion?
Yeah, I can't
So I
make
make a motion to approve the minutes that were read for the Finance Committee for their April 25 meeting, which were read on May 3rd and whatever today is, May 7th? What is today? May 7th?
Second.
Thank you. I think your powers. All right, so now can we have some discussion on those? Representative Kotowski?
So this is just about the minutes, right?
Yep.
Okay. There's no website design on this list. So basically, we know what the RTM the RTM committee did based on what you just read. Because otherwise it would be on this list, right?
It's on the CIP list. You can see it on 7J on the CIP list. It's not an account, in the first section. There's a different list that I believe Dawn handed out that's a CIP list. I have it. Does everyone else have it? Does anyone else have it?
It was handed out to everybody. Or, well, not everybody.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't get this tonight. This is my old one, but it still has it on it. It's pre-colored. You can check with what Betsy has. She has it on her phone. I didn't print them out. I might. Are you good? Thank you. Everyone has that? So we have a motion and a second. This is just to accept the minutes. Let me clarify. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of accepting the Finance Committee minutes as read at our last meeting on May 3rd and today, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
So 28 in favor, no opposed.
28 in favor, no opposed, 2 abstentions. The passage of those minutes is approved. So now we're going to go into web design. I guess I can put the motion on the floor from the committee. Is that acceptable? So I will make a motion to approve, let's see, 7J website design at $35,000. Is there a second? McDermott. Thank you. All right, so now we can open that up to discussion. Representative Katowski.
Thank you. This is one of those items that's very nice to have. We already have a website. We don't need another website. We don't need another taxpayer-funded, nice-to-have website. I would like to move the number 0.
Second.
All right. We have a motion on the floor that's been seconded for 0. Representative Washington?
No.
I'm sorry, White House.
They're both political, so I understand you. Thanks, Mom.
Sorry.
So I don't see the new website as nice to have at all. I see it as necessary. Looking at the website, it looks like a site that was made in 2001, which would be back when I was in college using LiveJournal, 3 years before Facebook existed. The website we have is frankly an embarrassment. If a business is looking at where they want to do business, if people are, if someone's looking at moving here from another state, on the off chance someone does want to move into Connecticut, they're going to look at the website for the town, and they're going to see a site that is not mobile friendly on their smartphone, which 60% of people, when they're going to a website, are doing it on their smartphone. They're going to see the Sub-Century logo, which I just saw on there. And they're going to find a very difficult to navigate site. And if someone's looking at, well, maybe I'll go to Groton, but I've heard good things about Stamford, and Providence is nice, a lot of what they have to go on is the website they find. And it could be the difference between an employer moving here and not moving here, what they're finding on this website, which is probably worth more than $50,000 over time for the town. And frankly, as a Groton resident, I'm embarrassed to be represented by a website that's old enough to vote. So I would like to move $50,000 so that we can actually have a website that does credit to this town, and go back to the full town council. Is the town council said 50, right?
The town council said 50, correct.
Okay. So that we can have a website that actually does credit to this town. We were talking about a very small percentage of our budget so that we can have the site we deserve. And so I know probably a lot of people don't know what CMS means.
We should get a second before you go
Okay.
on.
Second.
Thank you.
Can I continue? All right. So a lot of people don't know what CMS means. It means Content Management System, which means that they can actually update what's on the site more easily, spend less staff time to put the content up there that makes a difference, and generally make it easier. This is one of those things where people hate dealing with town government because they're dealing with 19-year-old websites. So it's 17-year-old websites?
Almost 18.
18, okay. Sorry, the website can't vote yet, but it'll be able to vote in the next election.
It can drink.
People encounter those kinds of websites, and that's what you think of when you think of government. Old, clunky. But when you see a town that has a new website, and we're talking $50,000, which is going to give us the site and the ability to maintain it, I am assuming. So, give us the ability to maintain it so that it will look good for years to come. Technology has come a long way in terms of web design since, the first Bush administration. So that's why I think we need to fund it fully. And, and granted, going from 0 to 50,000 will increase the mill rate by 0.01 mils, maybe. But I think that it's well worth it in what we'll get for it.
Thank you. Representative Casper?
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I personally think it's going to cost more than $50,000, but I think it's well worth it. I think it's foolish not to do it because I think it's probably eating up enough staff time trying to maintain what's always broken with the existing website. I think it's very labor intensive, the technology that's used, as opposed to the new technology where the task can also be spread out further, to other departments. And I had another thought, but it's sort of escaped me right now. But I just think it's foolish not to do it, and it's false economy. And I think it's also an embarrassment. I mean, if you try to use the GIS mapping and you don't have an older version of Windows, you don't have Silverlight, and you don't have Internet Explorer, you're really frustrated.
Representative McDermott?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Being on the Finance Committee, I had some of the same questions that have come up. And as I recall, the problem with the website now is that the guts of the thing will essentially be useless because there's not going to be any support for it shortly. Isn't that right, Brian?
That is correct.
Yeah. My problem with the $50,000 to begin with was, and Brian answered it, but I really don't like having all these consultant studies and having none of our own people do this work. I don't know what the parameters are for the people that we have, whether they can do some of these things or not. When we redid the parks website, we used interns. I can't recall from where they came, but they did the whole thing in a summer for us, which is a pretty complicated website. Nothing like what the town website is going to be, but I was hoping maybe we could get some of those folks. But in any case, I'd like to see us do more with our own people and tell us how much it's going to cost, hire another person if necessary, but we want somebody to really honcho this thing all the way through, but we probably do need another website.
I'd like to introduce the manager of the IT department, Brian Hancock, if you wanted to respond to any of the comments so far.
Actually, I agree with all the comments that have been said so far.
There you go.
It roughly is the town website right now has approximately about 1,300 landing pages on it. So it's a pretty good size internet, web-based web design we have there. It is old technology, and just last week, our ISP did an update on their end, which kind of locked us out. We were trying to update some new agendas for meetings and meeting minutes, and the ISP actually told us to go out, we should hire an ASP programmer to fix what we have in-house. That was their response. So, and the ISP is pretty much one of the last ones that we found out there to support our website at this point in time.
What's an
Representative
ISP?
Frickman?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. How many years left, how much time do we have left on the current platform?
The current browsers are just, when you drop Silverlight is our main driver on this. We're down to Internet Explorer, and one version of Firefox is out there, ESL, that does support it. But they can stop at any time, and I heard a deadline of early 2020.
And my other follow-up question, I'm looking at exploremore.groton.com, the one that we created recently. Do we know how much the team we used to build this? Are we working with the same people, or?
We haven't really looked into it, but they were about, the money was allocated for them was about $26,000
For that program?
for that program.
And this one we're asking 50,000.
Yeah, and they have, and we took approximately, they have 38 landing pages. So there's a comparison.
All right.
So I just wanted to know, ISP, Internet Service Provider?
Yes.
ESL, English as a second language? I don't know.
No, that was just what Firefox labeled ESL.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Representative Marshall.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. So, how much of the town's information goes through Facebook and other things other than the website? If you could put a percentage on that, how much goes through that? There's a lot of duplication of information.
No, there's not a lot of duplication. What we use Facebook for is we post out there to drive it to our web page.
Okay.
We have, I think we have like 9 Facebook pages out there right now that are driving everything back toward the web page, whether it's Recreation Library or Police Department, EOC. So we're trying to use the web page as the main landing area for all our information.
I personally use the GIS all the time on my mobile phone. I actually can use the website very well on my mobile phone, but I understand that it does need an upgrade. I do recommend that we do move forward with an upgrade of one of the 2 allotments. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Rogers?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I have a few questions. The 13,000 pages you said.
1,300.
1,300. Are they largely content pages? So in other words,
Yes.
are we collecting any personal data or capturing any credit card information?
No credit card information, no personal information.
Okay. And does this include the Parks and Recreation website, which does both of those? So
The internal Parks and Rec, not the Parks
Not
and
the
Rec via Vermont Systems.
consumer-facing is not included in this, so that would need to tie in,
Yes.
obviously.
Yes.
Are there any limitations on using the same CMS
As the economic development?
as
As
Parks and Rec?
Parks and Rec is using their Vermont Systems provider, the software provider that they got their system through.
Okay.
So I don't think that's an option.
So it could be a separate solution. The description says that the money would be used for the design of the website and the CMS. So is that assuming that we would be creating a CMS from the ground up, or have you looked into existing solutions as simple as WordPress, for which I know there are public government themes?
We would probably go out and contract and get a content management system, so something that is hosted, so it's always up to date, like we
Right.
won't be 18 years behind like we are now.
Right, right. I I'm a digital marketing director, so I build and run websites for, so I know that the initial cost can be quite hefty, but really, I think it was said that the ongoing maintenance is not a small factor, and to be using an arcane system, you can waste
True.
innumerable hours. So I think my last question is, who is doing the updating? Is it divided up to the various departments, or is there a central office handling?
Right now,
Yes.
it's all coming through IT.
Okay.
You know, they do, Parks and Rec and the library do some WordPress or some of their pages, but we post everything through us.
Is there a team in IT that could take on, I mean, WordPress is extremely, obviously you don't need to be a programmer to set up a
True.
WordPress website, that could be in charge of both the creation and then maintenance of the site, which is kind of optimal?
We were talking about that just the other day, and we were thinking that way to save some money to do that.
Right.
In-house.
Right,
Do
so-
some of the heavy lifting inside, and we're basically looking for design, look,
Right.
flow.
There are existing WordPress themes, for as little as $50 that you can buy, and then WordPress itself is quite economical. So it's really probably, if you go, I would say that route would be very smart, because the software is updated dynamically. As long as your server is compatible, you're all good. And then you have a system that you don't have to worry about training people on, because everybody knows it. All right.
Representative Powers? Okay, Representative Streeter, then, if you're passing.
Thank you. Point of clarification. We're voting on funds for fiscal year 2019, correct?
That's correct. The town council voted $50,000 for
I
a 20-day
understand that. But in the sheet that was passed out to us, we have for fiscal year 2019, 0. And then for fiscal year 2020, we have 50,000. So there must be an error in this because it's confusing me because according to this sheet, we're not asking for any money this year. It's next year.
It's actually for this year. The town council, my understanding is that they actually fast-forwarded the CIP, so they're taking what was identified as 50,000 for 2020, and they are pushing it up into 2019. Councilor Franco, would you be willing to just confirm or substantiate that?
Yes, please.
This was not on our original agenda. It had been pushed up from 2020 up to the 2019, and
That's it.
was voted on.
Thank you. So, does that clarify? We are voting on it for this fiscal year, coming 2019. Let's see, so are you finished? Representative Chase?
Okay, another point of clarification, thank you. So if we vote on the 35 or the 50, that is for a consultant only, it's not building anything, is that correct?
No, that would be for building it,
The 35 is for building or the 50 is for building?
both.
No consultant?
Well, we'll talk to a consultant and, or the vendor itself to see if we can get some help on design, workflow, best practices, and stuff like that.
So how much of that 35 or 50 is going to go for just consulting?
That I don't know at this point.
Rep- Representative Merritt? Use your microphone, please. The floor, right now, we have 3 motions on the floor for CIP 7J website redesign. There are 3 motions. The one we would vote on first is 50,000.
The way I read it, it's 35,000.
That was the motion that was moved by the committee,
Right.
right? Then there was a second motion made for 0, and then a third motion for 50,000. And the way we take motions in this body is kind of in the opposite order.
I understand, but
Okay.
the 50,000 is what was presented by the council then.
And then the committee rather, voted for 35,000, and that was what was moved. All right, Representative Bordelon.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I am in full support of this website. My son actually recently went on it, and he could barely navigate it. So that tells you with incoming flux of new people, which we're trying to attract, the usability and the friendliness of it is actually overwhelming and very frustrating for the younger generation. And that's the people we're trying to target. One of the things I hope that this website will bring will be that we incorporate the website from the Explorer, now Groton, or the one that the TIF is working on. I think some of that logos that they use that were already designed and paid for, I would like to see some transparency moving forward so that they link together, and that way everything kind of looks the same. It doesn't have to be exactly, but obviously, if you've already paid the money for the TIF and trying to bring people in, I think it'd be important to kind of make all those kind of go together. And once again, getting people to move here, that's the first place you go, and it is a bit overwhelming at times. I can't even get half of it to load. I can only imagine what you guys are experiencing. Moving forward, though, I would like to see how this town can properly manage our systems in a more effective way instead of waiting till everything's like Alpha Con, like we're in critical red condition here. One thing I'm learning about Groton, that's how we like to operate for some reason. So, the bridge is in disarray. Now the website is, so moving forward, is there a process in which that we can be looking every few years that, the people that you guys are having run this is managing it, that internally you guys are training our current employees to manage the system, and that way, it's cost effective and we're on top of the game, not 17 years later. Thank you.
Mr. Burt?
I just wanted to step back to the consultant thing. My hope is to use very little consulting. I'm not a big fan of using consultants. I've gone through 2 website updates in my former municipality that I led without using them. I'm not saying we might run into something that's complicated and we got to bring them in to help us, but it'd be very little. And then just to mention that it would be nice for each department to update their stuff. There's been times I'm in on the weekends and I want to get stuff posted and I can't. I've got to wait until they can fit. They can fit it in through their IT staff to get it in. So it would be nice to have that flexibility. I know the police. There's a lot of stuff they'd like to get out there and that to be more timely. So.
Is there any other comments? I'm waiting for anyone who hasn't spoken yet. Representative Gustafson.
In your opinion, do you think the 35 would cover the cost, or do you think you would need more than that?
That much for your site, what do you think? 35 seems a little low to me. 35 seems a little low. 35 is probably low.
Probably a little low.
Thank you.
Any other, Representative Bailey?
Going along with Representative McDermott, I believe, again, that's what's true. In-house is the best way to go. And I think we should put this off to come up with a plan how we can come together to have the town be able to take a full bite at this. Is to having pay somebody else to do something when we have possibly the capabilities here to do it the way we like to do it. So thank you very much.
Any other, Representative Powers?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I think it's great that we want to do things in-house. I think it's fabulous, but I do believe that we've had discussions about the staffing that you have, and that, you know, we're minus people. I remember the last time I was on the Finance Committee, we cut people out of your department, and I also believe that the district that I represent has a lot of Navy people that come in and out of Groton, and that I agree with this, and whatever money you need, I think it's the most important thing that we're able to navigate the system, that it interacts with all the different parts of the town, and that we move the number now. Thank you.
Is there a second to that?
Second. Who seconded that?
Gustafson. All right, so we have a motion to call the question. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
What?
27 in favor, 3 opposed, no abstentions. So that motion carries. So we have 50,000 on the floor. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Hands up, please.
Four. 24 in favor, 6 opposed, no abstentions. Oh, any abstentions? I forgot to ask that. Any abstention? No. So 24 in favor, 6 opposed, no abstentions. That motion passes. All right, so Representative Newsom, can I invite you up to provide us with information about Public Works? I did. Yeah, I had it up for quite a while. Oh, no, I don't count. Sorry, I think that number was 23 in favor, 7 opposed, no abstentions. Thank you.
Madam Moderator, with your permission, what I would like to do, since the Public Works Committee met on 2 separate nights, to avoid confusion, I'd like to read the meeting minutes for the first meeting, get that meeting approved, and vote on those accounts, and then that'd probably take us up to recess time, come back and then read the second one, the second meeting minutes, get that approved, and then go through those accounts.
That sounds fine to me. Would you like to do a bullet by bullet like finance, or all in one chunk for the first minutes?
All in one chunk.
That's fine. Go for it.
So the RTM Public Works Committee met on April 18th, 2018, Groton Senior Center. The meeting was called to order at 6:35 p.m. Members present: Representatives Newsom, Massett, Merritt, Stanford, and Wells. Other RTM members present were Representative Casper, Whitehouse, and Moderator Eben. Present for the town was Public Works Director Gary Schneider, Assistant Director of Public Works Chris Lund, and Public Works Administrative Supervisor Stacy Ullman Leach. A quorum was declared. There was no unfinished business. Under new business, FYE 2019 budget. Our first account is account 1035, Public Works, on page 114 in your budget book. A motion for $5,739,146 was made by Representative Massett, seconded by Representative Merritt for account 1035. This was the figure passed by the Town Council by a vote of 8-1 to 0 at their April 9th, 2018 meeting. Am I too close to the microphone?
No.
All right.
You're fine with me.
Director Schneider was asked to discuss the change in transfer station hours mentioned to the Town Council. He noted the Town Council previously provided direction to the Town Manager to find reductions without eliminating services. He stated that 2 transfer station employees would be laid off. This would result in the transfer station only being open 8 hours per week, approximately. Tentatively, the hours would be 8 a.m. to noon on Friday and Saturday, although a final decision has not been made. He said there are about 1,000 permit holders, or roughly 2.5% of the town population, and approximately 15,000 trips made to the transfer station in the last year. Residents can purchase a yearly permit for $80 or pay $20 for a one-day pass. Representative Massey expressed her concern about the new transfer station hours and the curtailed leaf composting that's being done. The director stated that composting properly is manpower intensive, the temperatures had to be taken, and the compost sometimes needs to be turned, and you have to add water at times. The town has been taking leaves from residents, town operators, contractors, i.e. landscapers, and from other towns. With the reduction in staff, Public Works will only take leaves from residents and town operations. The compost pile will still be available at the Wells Road landfill, however, they'll be much less available. The director continued on, providing a short description of the functions of the Public Works Department. Public Works performs solid waste management, wastewater collection and treatment, fleet management, road and infrastructure repair, snow removal on town roads, streetlight maintenance. They fund the utilities for the town buildings. They monitor the closed landfills and operate the transfer station, and probably about 100 other things I haven't mentioned. Director Schneider went on to say that the Public Works budget has been reduced by about $2 million since 2009, noting the pie chart in our budget books on page 51. If you want to turn there and take a look. He said that in FYE 2009, Public Works was 6.8% of town expenditures. This year, it's 4.5%. Representative Merritt expressed his displeasure that the Public Works budget had been so eroded over the past few years. The director went on to talk about a new cost center in his budget, Cost Center 10354, Stormwater MS4, shown on page 117. And you should probably take a look at that because that's going to become a big issue. The Town Council passed a new ordinance titled Introduction of Illicit Stormwater Discharge Ordinance, which will be referred to the RTM Public Works Committee at our May 12th meeting coming up, and a recommendation regarding a veto will be provided to the body at the June 13th meeting. This effort is going to require testing and identification of sources of stormwater pollution, such as large parking lots where rain washes dripped motor oil into the stormwater drains. Such sources will eventually be disconnected from the stormwater system. Groton will have to start testing stormwater and finding businesses or people who are non-compliant. The lab costs, testing time, ordinance enforcement of this unfunded state mandate are expected to increase $50,000 a year, every year, for the foreseeable future. Representative Wells recommended that the town investigate the possibility of initiating a stormwater utility. He noted that New London was already investigating this possibility. The discussion turned to the streetlight conversion project. As discussed in account 1090, the City of Groton, at our May 3rd RTM meeting, the town pays for the cost of electricity and maintenance for the city streetlights based on the estimate provided by Groton Utilities. The director said there are 2 utility companies, Groton Utilities, which services the city, Groton Long Point, and Mumford Cove. Eversource services everywhere else. The town owns the streetlights in the Eversource area, having purchased them from Connecticut Light and Power decades ago. Groton Utilities chose to retain ownership of the lights in their service district. During last year's budget session, the RTM heard the town was nearly finished with converting their streetlights from high-pressure sodium, or HPD, to light-emitting diodes, or LEDs. The town received a 4-year interest-free loan to purchase the lights. In 2 years, when the loan is paid off, maintenance and electricity costs in the Eversource area are expected to go from $140,000 a year to $40,000 a year. The director spoke about his efforts to coordinate the light replacement effort for the whole town with Groton Utilities because it's not as simple as just removing one bulb and replacing it with another. Some areas need more light, some areas need less. LEDs can be very bright, so some effort has to go into this coordination because obviously you don't want your front yard lit up like daylight 24 hours a day. Rather than working with Public Works, Groton Utilities purchased their own lights and began replacement. Groton Utilities has set the street light rate at $141,000 per year every year going forward. The present corresponding cost of the high-pressure sodium lights is $130,000. Thus, Groton Utilities will pay off the replacement cost, but there will be no corresponding savings from the replacement. Since Cost Center 10357 includes Mumford Cove, which is under Groton Utilities, Representative Massett requested that a town representative meet with Groton Utilities to find out why there'll be no cost savings from Groton Utilities after their street light loan is repaid. Director Schneider then discussed efforts being undertaken at the former Fitch Middle School. Code upgrades in the area presently for use should be complete by the end of June. Phase 1 was to upgrade the fire alarms and sprinklers. Phase 2 now includes some ADA compliance issues, such as a handicapped toilet with a wider stall, but also some additional firewalls that will slow the spread of fire from room to room. After these efforts are completed, again by the end of June, everything from Parks and Rec will be moved to the Fitch Middle Complex from the former William Seeley School, and that school will be placed in cold storage. This is why the vacant school cost center, 1035B, went from about $99,000 to about $10,000, along with former Fitch Middle building being taken off the vacant school list and moved to cost center 10352, public buildings. Colonel Ledgerd School and Pleasant Valley School are coming back to the town at some point. Colonel Ledgerd School will immediately go into cold storage. The Board of Ed is still using Pleasant Valley for some storage, but that's expected to end sometime this year. The director was asked about the maintenance that was performed at the town garage for outside agencies and stated that the town garage no longer performs maintenance on outside agency vehicles anymore, and the last mechanic who performed that work had already been laid off. Chairman Newsom expressed his disappointment because fire districts and even the city have been bringing their vehicles there because it costs less for the town garage to perform the work. So agencies saved money and the town garage had an additional revenue stream. But it was not clear why the other agencies had suddenly stopped bringing their vehicles to the town garage. The director was also asked about periodic maintenance on large emergency valves due to the town having to purchase and replace a large valve several years ago because it had rusted closed because it hadn't been cycled. The director assured the committee that a periodic maintenance program had been implemented on large valves at the sewer treatment plant and pump stations. The 15% increase in cost center 1035A, fleet maintenance, was questioned. The director explained that account 1035A was people, tools, and consumables, not vehicles and parts. The town is planning to purchase a mobile 4-post lift to position large vehicles so they can be worked on more ergonomically and efficiently. The town does not presently have a vehicle lift system, and there's no location where a permanent large lift can be installed. And the estimate from the vendor for the portable lift system is $15,000, but because it's considered a shop tool, its cost is in the 1035A cost center. And the thing about that lift is right now, when they work on some of the bigger trucks, mechanics have to work on their backs on creepers and in very difficult kind of cramped positions. And it would be much easier to work on these things when they're up in the air and they can see what they're doing. And I think it'll actually probably help keep people from getting hurt, because it's a difficult position to work in under your car. A question was raised about the $19,000 cost shown in operating expense 5410 computer equipment on page 118. The $19,000 is to upgrade the Fitch Middle complex to digital control of the heating and ventilation system. Presently, some of the town buildings, such as the Groton Public Library and Senior Center, are monitored, and alert is sent out by phone to the building supervisor when maintenance parameters like temperature fall outside of preset levels. The building supervisor then has to go to the town garage, log into a computer to access the information to find out which building is affected and the extent of the problem. In fact, Town Hall, the Spicer Building, and Human Resources, they're actually on dial-up modems. There's one computer at the garage that just has a modem, and that's how they connect with the systems in those buildings. That's how old that system is. Part of the $19,000 will be for installation of an app on the building supervisor's smartphone, which will allow the supervisor to attempt to correct a problem by adjusting the building controls using the phone. The benefit to the town is that even if an event occurs at any time, day or night, or on the weekends, the building supervisor has the capability to immediately identify the problem, attempt to resolve it, and be able to immediately call in the right people to take care of it. I know, if a boiler goes out, for instance, and the pipes, the temperature drops and the pipes freeze up, and you come in on, because we used to have people that would go every day or every night would go and patrol every town building and take a look at that stuff, but that got cut out of the budget. So there's nobody in a lot of these buildings from Friday night until Monday morning. So if the heat goes out and the pipes freeze or something happens, there's no way to find out about it. The director was asked if Public Works was given an opportunity to review the ERP software being put together for the town by Client First. Director Snyder assured the committee they had previewed the software and that it would work for Public Works, and also noted that the town was negotiating for the Finance and Human Resources modules. Expected time frame for integration of Public Works would be July 2020 or 21. There were no other questions on this account, with several representatives stating that some of their questions had already been answered by watching the town council, either being at the meeting or via YouTube. Vote was taken for account 1035 Public Works for the amount of $5,739,146. In favor were Representatives Newsom, Massett, Merritt, Stanford, and Wells. None opposed, no abstentions. Motion passed unanimously. The second account, 2020 Sewer Operating Fund, on page 120. A motion for $6,815,499 by Representative Newsom and was made by Representative Newsom, seconded by Representative Massett. This was the figure passed by the Town Council by a vote of 9-0 at their April 9th, 2018 meeting. Representative Merritt questioned paying for nitrogen. Groton has been exceeding the nitrogen discharge limits in Long Island Sound, which is shown in operating expense 5230, payments and contributions. It's a big number. It's about $500,000 that we're paying other towns because they're clean and we're buying credits from them. The state operates a system where towns below the nitrogen discharge limit accumulate credits, which can be sold to towns like Groton, which exceed their limit. Assistant Director Lund stated that they're trying to fix their tanks and improve their process. The question was asked about the sewer operating account no longer participating in the vehicle replacement program. Assistant Director Lund stated that the town has two enterprise funds, the golf course and the sewer fund. He stated that the golf course and sewer fund have always paid 100% of their contribution into the fleet fund, yet their vehicles always get cut at budget time. Therefore, those two funds have opted out of the town vehicle replacement initiative and will purchase their own vehicles from now on. Operating expense 5420, shown on page 123, for $450,000 is the new vehicle line item for this account. $315,000 is for a jet truck that blows clogs out of the lines. The current jet truck has gotten to the point where large expenditures have been required to keep the vehicle operational, and therefore it's time to replace the truck. The remainder, $135,000, is for 3 pickup trucks. When asked about who approved pulling out of the fleet fund, the director said it was approved by the town manager, who has the final say on all vehicles that are purchased in the town. It was also noted that even though the vehicles we purchased under account 2020, they would be available for use by other public works functions. It was also clarified that this account, the sewer operating fund, is an enterprise fund controlled by the Water Pollution Control Authority, or WPCA, which means that they are semi-autonomous. They are semi-autonomous and generate their own revenue. This is done by sewer use charges, which are at present $32 per household per month. Commercial users are charged the same fee adjusted for the size of the business. This rate will go up next year to $33 per household per month. You'll notice the line fund balance applied in this account. As an enterprise fund, this account is allowed to keep its own fund balance. So in this account, fund balance applied is money already collected and under the control of the WPCA. In the financing plan and most other accounts in the budget book, you'll see general fund, which is the contribution from the town's general fund. So funds expended under account 2020 come ultimately from sewer use fees and do not contribute to the town mill rate. There were no other questions. A vote was taken for $6,815,499 for account 2020 sewer operating fund. In favor were Representatives Newsom, Massett, Merritt, Stanford, and Wells. None opposed, no abstentions. Motion passed unanimously. Account 2030, solid waste fund on page 126. A motion for $1,694,483 was made by Chairman Newsom for account 2030 solid waste fund. A second was provided by Representative Massett. This was the figure passed by the Town Council by a vote of 9-0 at their April 9th meeting. The director explained that when trash haulers bring trash collected throughout the town to the Preston incinerator, the Southeastern Connecticut Regional Resources Recovery Authority, or SCARA, weighs each load and submits a bill to the town for the associated tonnage. The town then collects the cost by billing each of the haulers. So this is essentially a pass-through fund which has no effect on taxes or the town mill rate. However, since paying SCARA is by itself technically a town expenditure, we, the RTM, are obligated to approve this transaction. A question was raised about the interest income in the financing plan shown on page 127. The director stated the town charges 18% interest for overdue hauler payments, and also noted that to be a hauler in Groton requires putting up a bond for 3 months of anticipated payments before being allowed to haul. With no further questions, the vote was taken for $1,694,483 for account 2030 solid waste fund. In favor, Representatives Newsom, Massett, Merritt, Stanford, and Wells. None opposed, no abstentions. Motion passed unanimously. And now the final account for this group. I know you're waiting to hear me shut up. Account 6040, Fleet Fund on page 130. Motion was made by Representative Newsom for $1 million for account 6040, Fleet Reserve. A second was provided by Representative Massett. This was the figure passed by the Town Council by a vote of 6-3-0 at their April 9th meeting. Up until 2005, each town department paid for a replacement vehicle out of their department budget, resulting in large swings in department budgets year to year. In 2005, the Fleet Reserve Fund was established to allow the town to set aside some amount each year such that by the time a vehicle required replacement, the funds were already available. As budget years became more and more difficult, the cost for replacement vehicles was moved from the individual departments to account 6040 to help bolster the fund. A question was asked about why maintenance and fuel was moved from the individual accounts to this account this year. And the director explained that the vehicle fuel and spare parts, which were previously shown as vehicle fuel and maintenance fee respectively in the individual accounts, have been moved from the individual accounts and combined into 6040 so that we could see the big picture all in one place. There was a question about the sale of fixed assets. It was explained that the town puts old vehicles up for auction. However, no vehicles have been sold online this past year, and in addition, it wasn't clear how many of the 13 vehicles authorized for purchase last year have been bought so far this year. The director was asked how a $121,000 cut made by the town council would affect the purchase of vehicles, shown on page 134. If you look at the bottom of page 134, you'll see the vehicles that the town is planning on buying this year. Discussion centered around an estimated $29,000 repair needed for the Sterling snowplow versus $205,000 to buy a new one. Representative Massett stated her concern about the patchwork repair of town vehicles eventually leading to a dangerous condition. Representative Massett made a motion for $1,120,221, which is the town manager number. It was seconded by Representative Wells. Conversation continued amongst committee members for another 20 minutes, but since we have another meeting scheduled for April 25th to continue the Public Works account, Chairman Newsom suggested that, considering how tired everyone was, because we've been there at this for 3 hours now, that the meeting should adjourn for the evening. The motion to adjourn was made by Representative Wells and seconded by Representative Massett. The motion to adjourn was unanimous. Now, the two motions were still on the floor. However, because the committee had intended to meet again, and so we weren't ending the committee's work, that's allowed by Robert's Rules of Order. You can adjourn as long as it's known that the committee is going to meet again. Respectfully submitted, Scott Newsom, RTM Public Works Chairman. Madam Moderator, I make the motion to approve the meeting minutes for the April 18th, 2018 RTM Public Works Committee meeting.
Is there a second? All right, we have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. Representative Katowski?
Thank you. Could you please repeat what you said about the golf course vehicles?
Give me 1 second. So if you look, actually, the better one is to, if you look at page 118, which is the Public Works account, you'll see 5316 and 5317 where maintenance and fuel have gone this year, they're zeroed out because they're moved into account 6040, right? So there are no vehicles purchased in the Public Works. And Director Schneider, if I'm making a fool of myself, please throw the flag at any time.
Like over here.
Don't You would think with having kids I would be used to this. Throw the flag at any time if I'm not saying something correct. So there's no vehicles, fuel, or spare parts, for instance, in the Public Works budget because that's all been moved to the Fleet Fund 6040. However, if you look at the Sewer Operating Fund on page 123, you'll see vehicle replacement, vehicle maintenance fee. Well, does vehicle replacement go to zero? You see.
Yeah, Representative Katowski was asking about the golf course.
Right, I understand, but the golf course and the sewer fund are both enterprise funds, so they're analogous. Am I correct, Director Schneider?
Correct.
So the funds for the vehicles for those two funds are in those two accounts, not in the 6040 fleet fund.
That's correct.
One more question. What was the number you increased the fleet fund to? Or what was the number that was proposed to increase? I didn't catch it.
So the fleet fund, we actually ended the meeting with no vote on the fleet fund. The fleet fund will be the first account that we cover in the next meeting minutes.
There wasn't a proposed number on the floor?
There was two proposed numbers. The first one, but they died. We ended up adjourning the meeting before we finished. The first number was $1 million, which was the town council number, and the second one was $1,122,122, I think, which was the manager number. And that was the second motion. And actually, both those motions will come back on the floor. You'll see when we talk about the next meeting, when we actually voted on 6040.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So you were mentioning the lifts in the fleet maintenance, which is $507,134. And my understanding is that $54,000 of that is shop tools, but there are 4 mobile lifts for $35,000. And I thought I heard you say 15, and I wanted you to clarify that number, please.
You know, 35 sounds more accurate. Let me grab my notes could be incorrect, and I will have to amend them. Let's see. Director Schneider, do you remember how much the 4-post lift was? 35,000 sounds right.
That's correct. The 4-post lifts is 35,000.
Could we amend your minutes to reflect that, please?
My minutes. My apologies.
Are there any other discussion, questions? Hearing none, I'd like to have a motion. We have a motion to accept these minutes as amended, I guess.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Okay, the first account is account 1035, Public Works on page 114. I'll make the committee motion, the recommendation of $5,739,146. So 5,739,146. Which again was the town council number that passed by vote of 8-1 to 0.
So, did it get seconded? I'm sorry, my back was, yes, thank you. So we have a motion on the floor for Public Works account 1035 for $5,739,146. Is there any questions or discussion? Representative Kotowski?
I have a question for Mr. Schneider. When the RTM recently approved the $75,000 for Fitch Middle School, I'm pretty sure you said that we weren't going to be spending any more money on Fitch Middle School, and it looks like there's money for the Fitch Middle School in the budget. Is that right?
There is money in the Fitch Middle School in this current budget, because right now our goal is by the end of June of this year, could be July. Contractor will finish up the work, the code compliance work in Fitch Middle. All of the rec programs will go from William Seeley School into Fitch Middle, and we close cold storage William Seeley, so there'll be no cost there for heating or water or electricity or sewer.
But that's being done under the funding that we approved last winter. That you required the additional $75 for? $75,000.
Right. It was for supplemental, and that was for the CIP project to complete the code compliance.
Okay.
So there's $300,000. We needed a little bit more money. Came back. I just had to get my memory going.
Yeah.
So that's the work that's being done upward, which is the code compliant work. Once we get that done, we should have Fitch Middle School open for business. Seeley closes, so all the utility costs from one building go to the other, and Seeley's done.
And so now, then we'll just start spending money, pouring money into Fitch Middle School.
We'll be spending money on Fitch Middle School.
I have a question too, and it's about those lifts. So we have 4 lifts at $35,000, and I was just curious because in the back section for CIPs, it says that these are for projects or acquisitions, capital assets, things that have a life expectancy over 5 years and a cost of over $25,000. And so I was curious why those vehicle maintenance tools, those mobile lifts, were not incorporated into a CIP.
In the past, it was past practice that anything that was mobile was not in the capital improvement program, meaning that you could move them around if they were fixed to a structure like a boiler or a heating system or something like that, then that could be put in the CIP. So these are mobile units, so we went with that definition. I mean, it does meet the dollar value, but it was placed in the budget instead of, in the budget, operations budget, instead of the CIP, because there was mobile units.
Thank you.
So this is they're like 4 posts, and each post has a fork. It can get under the tire. So you place one of each of the 4 tires, and each one's independent, and they lift the vehicle
Yeah,
up.
I was just really thinking it was a kind of a capital improvement of sorts at $35,000. It seemed to my mind to fit the bill for a CIP. I understand they're mobile, but there are lots of things like software that we also stick in there that seem like you could, that are somewhat mobile. So that's why I was, just wanting to clarify that. I think, when you incorporate it into a larger number, it may not get the focus it might get as a CIP, but that's fine. Representative McDermott, did you have, no? Representative Powers, did you have your, nope, all right. Representative Whitehouse.
Just with the lift, that's one unit that we're getting that has 4 parts. Is that what it is?
No, there's 4 host. There's 4 units, but they all talk to each other, so list the vehicle
Right.
up. They usually, they come in quads. I don't
But
think they'll be ever.
it's 4 posts make one, they lift one vehicle.
Right,
Okay.
one unit.
We're not buying the ability to lift 3 vehicles or 4 vehicles, we're buying the ability to lift 1 vehicle with 4 pieces that do it
Correct.
together. Okay, thank you.
Any other, Representative Frickman?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I did have a question in regards to street lighting's in the same account, right, in 1035?
Yes, sir.
Right, so I guess, we were talking earlier, if the town went from $140,000 down to $40,000 after we paid off the loan, but Groton Utilities is $141,000 every year, yet afterwards, after they pay off the loan, is it perpetual, $141,000 a year?
Yes, if, I mean, that's the simplest question. If the moderator allows, I can invite Rick Norris up here, who is our LED lighting expert. He is the one who managed the town's portion of it for Eversource, and he can answer more of those questions in detail. And
so I'm just wondering what happens when you pay it off. You just continue to, yeah.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. To answer your question, the town's portion of the GU lights in the town, they're charging us $141,000. That's going to be a continual cost. They've changed their cost of lighting, whether it's HPS, which is currently there, or LEDs, and that's a continual cost. They don't have the same mechanism or savings that we would have by having a loan. Once we pay off the loan, we'll be saving basically $100,000 a year on street lighting. That's why it's $40,000. They obtain money through a RGGI fund, which is called the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, which we never really got a good definition of, because that's conservation money that they collect over a period of time by some small attachment to everybody's utility bill. And we're concerned that we are not even sharing in any energy savings or the cost of the lights, and that cost that they're showing, and the $141,000 is just for the GU lights in the town area, not including the city or other places, would continue on at that level. So, it's basically 3 times what we're paying for our lights, for fewer fixtures, for like 300 less fixtures than what we're paying. So, there is our concern that will never change, and that will continue to pay those kind of funds. And then if you throw the city and the Groton Long Point and those sorts of things in there, we're talking about $260,000 versus for 2,000 fixtures versus the $40,000 that we're paying for 1,300 fixtures. So something is not quite right to us, and I haven't been able to get the information to compare apples and apples, for example.
And as you recall from the other night, the Groton Long Point and the city lighting bill is an estimate from Groton Utilities that we have to pay. They just pass it to us and we pay it. So there's really no negotiating there. It's just, here's the number, you guys pay.
Any other discussion? Representative Bordelon?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I know that in the winter when we voted on the Fitch Middle, and I had raised a question about the water quality there, checking for lead. I know I spoke to Mr. Schneider, and I was wondering if those results were back, because moving forward with any improvements there, we want to make sure we're not going to have to backtrack and take down walls to address any lead that could be there.
It has not been tested. We have told Parks and Rec to put the people on bottled water. Right now, we're still working with Groton Utilities on getting the testings done. From what I understand, Groton Utilities will be testing all of the schools, so it's getting it into their queue of testing. I know my staff has been talking with the plant, not the plant manager, but the lab manager over there of getting that testing done. And then we're looking at then the rest of our town buildings of what age the buildings have been, what age of the buildings they are, and what are either on well service or water service, and we'll be looking at testing in those buildings too. But Fitch Middle, we have not tested yet. It's in the queue to be tested. We hope for the next several weeks it will be tested, but right now in that building we've more or less turned the fountains off and told Parks and Rec to put the kids on bottled water until we can get it completed.
And just for clarification, has any signage been telling people that the water quality as of right now, you're not sure if it's drinkable, just so that other children and other people use the building, that making sure that they're not using faucets and things.
It's a good point. There's only a very a small portion of the building being used, which is the gymnasium. The rest of it's still under construction, but when it comes up, we'll make sure that the faucets are either turned off or tagged, not used, and the water fountain's turned off. But we plan to have all that testing done before the kids move really from Sealy over into Fitch.
Any other discussion? No? Seeing none, I think we're ready for a vote. So we have account 1035 on the floor, Public Works, $5,739,146. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? 29. So that motion carries, 29 in favor, 1 opposed, no abstentions.
The next account is account 2020, Sewer Operating Fund, on page 120. Madam Moderator, make a motion for $6,815,499. $6,815,499.
So I assume that's been seconded? Okay, thanks. So we have a motion on the floor for account 2020 Sewer Operating Fund, $6,815,499. Is there any discussion on this? Representative Kotowski?
Thank you. I understand that this account is just a pass-through, but $6,448,099 is user fees, and the users are the taxpayers. And every year, the user fees go up with no public input, no public comment. I realize that this is a department of the town, but it sort of acts like a public utility. And I was wondering if in the future, there could be some sort of public comment so the public knows why the user fees are going up. And maybe hold a public hearing, or, I mean, but it just seems like every year, because now it's up to $400 a year approximately, and I'm sure they're all good projects, but there just doesn't seem to be much transparency because we don't really get to know what's going on.
So in the state of Connecticut, the Water Pollution Control Authority is basically the controlling rate-setting authority in pretty much every community. I can't say everyone because I'm not sure, but across the board, it seems to be at least 90%. Our Water Pollution Control Authority meets the second Tuesday every month. The agendas are posted. We do talk about the budget. We do post in the agenda that we are going to have a session on the budget. The budget is presented to the WPCA before it's submitted to the town manager, and then I update them as to what the town manager does to it. We have a meeting tomorrow night. At tomorrow night's meeting, we'll be setting the public hearing date for the rates for next year. We do that every year. Every May we have a meeting that, we set the public hearing for the following month in June. So everybody's welcome to come out, and we have seldom had many attendees, but we publish it like every other entity so that it's out there, it's not hidden. Also, regarding the rates, I do take that quite seriously. The state of Connecticut in the last couple of years has been a partner with the North Carolina State University's Utility Fund Management Program. I'm not quite sure the exact title, but that entity analyzes rate structures throughout the country, and you can go onto their website and look at every rate in the state of Connecticut. One of the factors that they use for affordability is the function of what your sewer rate is on a monthly basis for residents compared to the median income for a resident. Right now, if the rate is approved for $33 per month for next year for residential, the metric that is used or suggested is 1% or less of your median gross income based on the census data for your community. If we are approved, our rate will be 0.59%. So we are well within what is considered affordable, actually quite less than that. Comparative to the rest of the state of Connecticut, we are below the median and the mean for rates. So I do take that quite seriously. We do look at it. I take into account the affordability. So it's, we're not just pushing up the rates at random.
So I stand corrected on that. Thank you for sharing that. Are your meetings, I like the website, okay? And I love that calendar. Now, if I press the number for tomorrow night, would your meeting be on there?
I just looked, it's there.
Thank you.
So I want to introduce Mr. Chris Lund, who is the Assistant Director of the Sewage Treatment Plant. Is that correct? So, any other?
Director of Public Works.
Public
Assistant Director
Works,
of Public
okay.
Works.
Assistant Director of Public Works, I'm corrected. So is there any more discussion? Any other? Representative Sini?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. All right, so I'm just trying to learn here, okay? So the salary adjustments for the FYE 2018 is 3608. So is that raises? Is that what raises is? On page 123? I'm looking at the right page, right? Is that what raises is? Just so I know what that means.
I'm sorry, I brought a different version.
That's
so
okay.
I don't have the budget book.
I'm sorry,
itself.
Representative Sini, what page were you looking at?
I'm looking at 123,
Yes.
And what was the number?
5109.
5109.
We're getting there, too many pages.
That's okay.
Oh, I found it, sorry, thanks. Those are programmed wages that may be retroactively paid out when the union contract is finalized.
And that's why there would be zero in the FYE request for like 2019 and all that, because you're not there yet.
Right, correct.
Okay. And then for 5153, health insurance, so the actual for 2017 was 317,283, then it goes up to 344, and then there's a big jump for your projected 2019. It's about what is that, 120? Is that 120,000? 80,000?
So I'm going to do this to our poor HR director again. So a lot of the personnel costs are passed through from HR directly, so I don't know exactly what is the onus behind such a big increase.
Okay. So what would be the decrease in the life insurance in 5158? Would that be HR too?
Yes.
Okay. And then I think I understood this one correctly. The 5230, the payments and contributions. What is that again?
So actually, I'm going to make a correction to, I think, what Representative Newsom said before. So payments and contributions, there are two big line items in there. And the 500,000 approximately one is, since we're an enterprise fund, that's overhead that basically we pay to the town for the other services, like the HR services. They pay or send out our bills, collect our bills and whatnot. So we pay about, I think it's $499 or $497 scheduled for next year of that, is that big contribution. Then there's also $50,000, that approximately $50,000 that we expect to pay to the state for nitrogen credits.
Okay.
My apologies, I misunderstood.
That's okay. And then just one more question. So I just want to make sure I understand it correctly. So 5420, so it's 000, and then it goes to 450,000, 450,000. That's for vehicles?
Right, and as was discussed about vehicles before, is we're taking the vehicle costs directly out of our accounts instead of paying into the vehicle funds.
All right, I just want to make sure I understood it. Thank you.
Representative Newsom.
So what do we have to do to, in order to get rid of the nitrogen issue?
So that's been our ongoing battle since I've been there and even before that. So we did the upgrade in 2009 to help reduce the amount of nitrogen going into the sound. And what we've best been able to determine right now is that our waste stream, unfortunately, is different than the city stream for some reason. It could be that during the city you have just an influx of everybody to EB and Pfizer, and then they go home at night, so it changes the process, whereas we're more of a consistent flow. In our bench testing and other analyses that we've done, we've determined that if we were to add a supplemental carbon source in, basically it's food for the bacteria, food for the bugs, we'd be able to get the nitrogen down, but the cost of that supplemental carbon, which a lot of communities actually use because their credits cost a lot more than ours. If you go down to the western end of the state, where they're very concerned about hypoxia because there's less water flow down there, it's cost effective for them to do it. But what it looks like right now is if we wanted to get rid of all that extra nitrogen, we'd probably have to pay about $60,000 for that product to save around $45,000. So right now it's not cost effective. It's not a permit violation, unlike if we were discharging bacteria. It's just a goal that the state has met that they financially incentivize you to meet.
I was just wondering because, you know, every year we seem to have in the CIP 10C a large contribution to making upgrades to the plant. I wasn't sure if this was something that had to be done or not.
Actually, we're beyond the upgrades now, and we're getting to the point where the plant's at its getting to its major life replacement projects. So.
Representative Bordelon?
Thanks, Madam Moderator. I had just one question. Looking at 5104 overtime, 142,000. Looks like we stay at the same. It's kind of convenient. What was the actual overtime this past year versus the estimated?
I don't have that number with me. We have.
Have we looked at,
we have
hiring somebody else instead of paying out so much overtime?
So we have a couple different types of overtime that we use. So the plant has to be managed 24/7, 365. We don't have our whole staff there 24 hours a day. We pay for a watch person service after hours. But we do have about 3 to 4 hours of service every Saturday, every Sunday, and every holiday. So that's part of the overtime. That's 2 operators and 1 mechanic.
And I just looking in the direction, I'm sure someone part-time would like to do that, and you could maybe decrease that overtime by a little bit. I don't know, just a thought. Looking at that, just sitting at 142,000 of overtime consistently, that to me would just draw a red flag to try to handle it.
So half of our overtime is typically that scheduled overtime. The other half of the overtime is emergency call-ins, people's grinder pumps, something breaks, those types of issues. So we have looked at a couple of different solutions, possibly changing one person's hours so that they work Tuesday through Saturday and somebody from Sunday through, to cover it that way. But it really hasn't turned out to be necessarily cost effective. It looks like it's just a little bit more. And also there are certain jobs that we do that I wouldn't want one person doing. So.
Representative Powers?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Just a quick question for you. As far as the nitrate problem is concerned, that would be corrected in the long term if we were to replace the plant, if its longevity is at its life expectancy?
I don't know if I can say that, quite honestly. There are different types of processes that could be implemented. One of the significant differences between us and the city, for example, is they have a digester, so they reduce their solids by digestion. They take off the gas and use that for other purposes like heating the plant. So we could change that. We're looking at, the reason the jet truck, for example, is on my list this year is we're putting that into more use because we need to get back out and inspect the lines, look for breaks in line. We think that part of a problem is we may be getting a lot of dilution because the lines are old as well, so there's groundwater getting in there. And if we take care of that problem, maybe it'll concentrate it better, and then we'll take care of it that way. So we're trying, at this point, we're trying to solve it without putting more money into it.
The second question I have is, do we have like engineering studies? Do we have a general idea what it's going to cost to replace the plant?
I don't think the whole plant has to be replaced. So what you will see, and I've talked about this at the subcommittee meeting, is that what you're going to see over the next couple of years, and we started doing it at the plant just this week, is we're updating our we have a 10-year capital plan that I put together. We're only required to have 5, but we're updating our 10 again. And what you're going to see over the next couple of years are those bigger ticket items coming in through in chunks, like all the pumps at the Gravel Street station, or all the electrical in the lab build, or the laboratories in there, for example. So pieces and pieces. It's not going to be we have to tear everything out of the ground all at once, but we'll definitely need to be putting in big ticket items in the budgets.
Thank you very much.
Representative Whitehouse?
So with the anticipated large capital cost for the plans, money being set aside for that, or is that something that's going to need to be bonded, or?
We are trying to get to the point where we are going to be self-sustaining without additional bonding. And my goal would be to have an annual capital plan of around 1.5 to 2 million and not more. So we're trying to start to chunk those projects up and being a little more proactive, look at 10 years out. So if we do, let's say, for example, 10 years from now would be a major replacement of a whole station. Well, if we can divide it out into components over the next couple of years, so that we're not doing a $10 million projects, or trying to get bonding for another $10 million project.
So you're trying to plan it out in advance and put the money aside or spend it as you go?
It's more spent, it's
instead of
more
just borrowing
spend
a
as
giant
you go.
chunk of money and paying interest on it.
Right.
That sounds efficient and ungovernment-like. I'm confused. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who hasn't spoken yet who wishes to speak? If not, Representative Sini, you're on for your second and last time.
So thank you, Madam Moderator. So you mentioned something about the lines, because I know we spoke about it in the committee when you go in and you put that liner in there. So you're saying that'll help with the nitrogen? Or maybe?
It might, because we have some areas that we know, for example, when they did the Midway Oval neighborhood a couple of years ago, they relined all those lines, and they took out 500,000 gallons worth of extra just clean water a day. So as we go through and maybe we reline, or maybe we just find a broken pipe, we fix that. If we take out all that extra water, that's just diluting everything, maybe that'll just help us.
Just out of curiosity, how many miles do we have of line?
I'm sorry, how many total miles of lines?
Total miles of line.
We have 136 miles of sewer lines in the town.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Representative Marshall?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I had a question about the vehicle. So I understand you guys need to put the vehicles into your budget to get have your needs met. But it was also mentioned earlier that the use of those vehicles will be shared, they're potentially available for other uses by other departments. So you mentioned there's 3 pickup trucks and 1 pumping
jet truck. Yep.
So what other uses would those have, and what applicable departments do you think would be using those?
Well, the three of them are just utility type pickup trucks with toolboxes, and I think one of those 3 is one of our plow trucks. So we plow our own stations and we help where else is needed. As far as the jet truck goes, we help the other communities as needed. We assisted the city as needed with their truck, and when their truck is out for maintenance and whatnot. That's a specialized piece of equipment, so really not a lot of uses for those outside of what it's built for.
Yeah. Now, do you see this increasing over time? I know obviously we're only cared about this 1 year. So what, if you had a number in mind for next year, what would you think? Maybe the town manager can answer it as well. But what are we looking at next year? We're obviously not going to be releasing vehicles every year, but what are we looking at going forward?
I think my total vehicle allocation I want to reduce by 2. So when those vehicles, I have 2 in mind, when they come up for replacement, I just plan to not replace them.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I think we're at the end of our discussion, seeing no more hands. So we have account 2020, which is the sewer operating fund, and we have a number on the floor, $6,815,499. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries unanimously.
The next account is account 2030, Solid Waste Fund, on page 126 in your budget book. Madam Moderator, I make a motion for $1,694,483.
Second.
We have a motion, and it's been seconded for account 2030, the Solid Waste Fund, $1,694,483. Is there any discussion? Representative Newsom.
So just as a reminder, this is the pass-through fund where we take the trash up to Preston, and then we bill the haulers after Preston has billed us. So this is just a pass-through account. It doesn't have any impact on the mill rate or anything else.
Any other discussion? Should we wait for our other member? What? All right, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So I think that passes 29 in favor, 1 not voting. No abstentions, no opposed.
So the next account will be account 6040, which we split halfway, and we'll pick it up again at the next set of meeting minutes.
Okay.
So would this be a good time for everybody to take a quick break?
Let's take a 10-minute recess if possible, so I'd like us back here at 8:40, if I'm reading the clock correctly. 8:45, sure. And we're going to continue with, I think, Fleet Reserve, but I'll let Representative Newsom take over.
Yes, and what we're going to do is, because there's a lot of small individual CIPs, moderators recommended that we just do them individually, and then we'll vote on the meeting minutes for this particular meeting at the end after we vote on everything. So, RTM Public Works Committee, April 25th, 2018 meeting minutes, Groton Senior Center, Classroom 1. Meeting was called to order at 6:35 p.m. Committee members present were Representative Newsom, Sini, Massett, Merritt, Stanford, and Wells. Present for the town was the Public Works Director, Gary Schneider, Assistant Director of Public Works, Chris Lund, and Public Works Administrative Supervisor, Stacy Ullman Leach. A quorum was declared. Under unfinished business, account 6040, Fleet Reserve Fund on page 130 in your budget book. Motion was made by Representative Newsom for $1 million for account 6040 Fleet Reserve. Second provided by Representative Massett. This was the figure passed by the Town Council by a vote of 6-3 to 0 at their April 9th, 2018 meeting. Since the last RTM Public Works Committee meeting, Director Schneider had spoken with the fleet manager. It may be possible to buy a chassis for the Sterling, which was the snowplow vehicle that you see on page 134 at the bottom. You see the Sterling there for $205,000. It's a plow truck. And $205,000, right. So it may be possible to buy a chassis for the Sterling off of a used vehicle, and I think the number was $105,000 that was mentioned, and then about $25,000 more to install it. Is that right, Director?
Correct.
Thank you. Director noted that the police cruisers to be replaced, shown on page 134, all require at least $2,000 worth of parts per year to remain roadworthy. Representative Stanford asked about the mileage on two of the police cruisers to be replaced, 3 GRO and 17 GRO. And I think they're both over 100,000 miles. Representative Merritt expressed concern about the way that the town has put off vehicle replacement. There was additional discussion about the online bidding process for disposing of unused vehicles, or unusable vehicles, rather. Supervisor Ullman Leach said that nothing was sold online last year. Representative Stanford, I gotta change that typo. Representative Stanford asked about the process for outfitting the police cruisers after they're purchased, It was explained that the new police vehicles go to a private detailing shop where the gun racks, light bars, decals, radios, etc. are installed. With regards to buying new vehicles, Director Schneider said that they try to buy the previous year's model and they try to get the government rate. They also try to buy vehicles off of different bid sites. Representative Cini asked if the town buys less expensive but diverse vehicles. The director said yes, they do, within reason. When buying used vehicles, the director explained they had to be careful because many used vehicles come with amenities such as leather seats and sunroofs, which would give the wrong impression if he was seen driving down the street by the public. Representative Massett said she was tired of placing so much of the recent year budget cuts on the back of Public Works Department and made a motion for $1,120,122. The motion was seconded by Representative Wells. This was the town manager's number. Representative Newsom stated that the order of accounts taken up by the RTM during their budget session should be rotated because, in his opinion, Public Works typically comes at the back half of the budget session, and it seems that by the time Public Works comes up, the RTM realizes there have been few budget reductions and they tend to overcorrect at the expense of Public Works. In his opinion, the accounts that fund things which are nice to have should not get a free pass while cutting the department that disposes of sewage, provides clean drinking water, and maintains the roads we drive on every day. Representative Cini stated that as a bus driver, she drives all over Groton every day. In her opinion, the town fleet has too many vehicles. The Water Pollution Control Authority alone has 14 vehicles. A discussion ensued about a comparison of the number of vehicles owned by the town versus the number owned by the city. Representative Merritt asked why we were having this discussion because the question before the committee is whether or not the town needs the vehicles proposed for replacement. Representative Massett stated that the RTM has made some cuts in the past without rationale because people don't want their taxes going up. There was no further discussion, so a vote was taken on the first amended figure of $1,120,122 for account 6040 Fleet Reserve Fund. The vote was 3 in favor, Massett, Merritt, Wells, 2 opposed, Newsom, Cini, and 1 abstention, Stanford. Not having 50% of the members present, the motion failed. No, I'll get back to that in just a second. A vote was then taken on the main motion of $1 million for account 6040. The vote was 4 in favor, Newsom, Cini, Merritt, Stanford, 2 opposed, Massett, Wells, and no abstention. The motion passes 4-2-0. So I have a post-meeting note in here. God bless you. When I went home and I was thinking about it, and I have to apologize to the Public Works Committee because I made a mistake. For whatever reason, what was going through my mind is, when we have a vote and it's a tied vote, the motion doesn't pass because you need more than 50%. And for some reason, that was in my head, and I wasn't thinking well at the time. So when the vote was 3-2-1, the abstention actually is like a non-vote. It's like that vote never existed, typically. And there's special considerations where that's not the case, but that doesn't have anything to do with this particular situation. So in actuality, 3-2 was a majority vote. And I said it wasn't, and we voted on the lesser number, the $1 million number. So I apologize to the committee, I made a mistake, but so to rectify that, we will be putting the results of that vote, which was $1,120,122, up on the board as the committee's recommendation for account 6040. And in my meeting minutes here, there's a post-meeting note that explains everything that I just said. So again, I apologize.
Can you repeat the number, please?
It's right there.
$1,120,122.
That's not what the town councilor has. The town manager is 221 at the end.
The council number was $1 million, correct? And Councilor Heed made recommendation from the first number, right? Wasn't that $120,000 approximately that he cut?
121, 22. 221. We're all dyslexic here.
No, it's okay.
Is that the motion you wish to make, or am I incorrect here? That's the manager's number.
Right.
I mean, that.
120,
that's-
so I said 122, and it should have been 221. That's the mistake that I made. I transposed, again, not in my right mind. So, my apologies. It should be $1,120,221, which is the town manager number.
Was that seconded? Second. Okay, we have a motion on the floor for account 6040, Fleet Reserve Fund, for $1,120,221. It's been seconded. Since it is higher than the town council number, we will have to have a 2/3 majority to pass it. Representative Bailey.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I move another number, the town council's number of $1,000,000.
Second.
So we have a new number on the floor, $1 million, and it's been seconded. Is there any discussion? Mr. Burt, could you speak to that?
I just wanted to say I support the town council's number, the 1 million. Gary's done some looking at numbers, and we think we can do what we need to do for $153 less than the 1 million, so we think we can squeak it in. So.
Representative Kachowski.
Thank you. On page 134, the fourth line down, it says golf course $70,000 Ford something. Now, did I hear tonight that we're taking the golf course out of the fleet fund and they're doing their own thing?
Yeah, that's not in this one, right?
Yes?
Right, yeah, correct.
Okay. So I'd like to move another number. If we're taking that out, then that
That
should-
wasn't,
That's-
we weren't
that's not
planning on
included.
buying that out of this in the first place. So the 1 million is to do our necessary things for the year,
Oh, so
this
it's at the
isn't
bottom.
getting-
which includes, Gary, do you want to maybe have Gary go over the list real quick?
I'm confused.
If I could borrow the town manager's book here, because I brought everything but this one. On page 134, what the department has typically done is, for the fleet fund, is list all the vehicles that should be replaced that haven't been, so they're on the replacement schedule. So if you look at that, everything above the gray line there, those are the vehicles that are on a replacement schedule that will not be funded for replacement this year. What the department does is take a look at the whole list of what needs to come up, and then we analyze it. Is there still life left in the vehicle? So all the ones you see above the gray part, we want to identify them, that those are in the fleet, and they're, if there's a replacement schedule, we are looking at these vehicles. Those are the ones that we are recommending not to be replaced. We want to identify them, but they're not being funded. Everything below that gray line are the vehicles that we had proposed to the town manager. He has concurred, and that went to the town council. They reduced that portion. So everything above it. Next year, what you will see is the golf course, since this was produced to the manager in December, you'll see any recommendation for a golf course or WPCF vehicles, that will be out of this larger graph or this larger list up here, and that'll be found someplace else in their functions budgets.
Thank you.
Okay.
Representative Bordelon, did you have a question or comments? Any other discussion? Representative Marshall?
Actually, a point of clarification. What is the number of votes required on the second motion?
It's just a simple majority.
Simple majority, and then the other number
2/3 out of
is 2/3
29.
majority.
20.
Okay.
So I see no hands up, so I think we're ready to vote. We have a motion for Fleet Reserve, account 640 of $1 million. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes, 26 in favor. Is it 3 opposed? 3 opposed, no abstentions.
Now we're into the CIPs. First CIP, CIP 1C, roads, Groton Long Point Bridge reconstruction on page 217 in your budget book. Motion for CIP 1C, Groton Long Point Bridge reconstruction was made for $300,000 by Chairman Newsom, seconded by Representative Massett. This was the figure passed by the Town Council by a vote of 5 to 4 to 0 at their April 17th, 2018 meeting. The director explained that the $300,000 buys preliminary designs that gets us far enough to apply for grants and prepare for a referendum. Early design work had been done in 2011 by an engineering firm, but the town has not acted on that information to date. There was discussion about the condition of the bridge. The last state inspection rated the bridge as being in poor condition. There was concern that the next state inspection, which is in September, may decide to limit the load on the bridge, or could at some future date, which would affect large vehicles such as fuel oil trucks or fire engines. Representative Wells stated that the town should look at alternate routes in case the bridge became impassable. Director Schneider said the town has contingency plans if the bridge fails. There is limited access over the Amtrak railroad tracks. This would be limited to small off-road capable vehicles such as Jeeps. If the bridge fails in a storm, Groton Long Point could be evacuated, but it would be a very slow process. More will be known about the state of the bridge after it's inspected this September. The director said they could take 5 years to do this project. There are environmental engineering permits that need to be filed, and the actual construction will be done in 2 phases. One lane of the bridge will be done one summer while the other lane is open, and then the other lane would be done the following summer. Since there were no additional questions, a motion was taken. A vote was taken for $300,000 for CIP 1C Groton Long Point Bridge. The vote was 5 in favor: Newsom, Sini, Massett, Merritt, Stanford. 1 opposed: Wells. No abstentions. The motion passes. Madam Moderator, I'd like to make a motion for $300,000 for CIP 1C Groton Long Point Bridge.
Second. All right. We have a motion on the floor for Groton Long Point Bridge reconstruction, CIP 1C, $300,000. It's been made and seconded. Representative Streeter?
Thank you. For the town manager, have we had previous engineering studies conducted on this? My recall says we've already spent money on that.
Yeah, it was back in, you say 2010 or 2011, around there.
That's when we started it, and it was completed in 2013.
How much was it, Gary?
It was completed in 2013, where it was presented to the town council at that time for several options, and the town council had picked option 2, which had called for the replacement of what they call a superstructure, the deck, and repair the causeway through rehab of the substructure, that's and the bearing portion of the bridge, and the installation of a separate sidewalk and elevated boardwalk. What we need to do is not step back, we need to step aside, bring up the plan that we had, and it's about a 2-inch plan and study that has been done with the options, presented back to the powers that be, the town council, and for what their feeling is, if this is the same option, like to continue forward. Any options we have are in the millions of dollars to replace that bridge. It was built in 1934, if I do believe, if my memory serves me right, and each year it's getting older. It needs to be repaired.
I think the question I asked her, how much have we spent on engineering prior to this?
That's all. It's about I do believe under $200,000, but I would have to, if you need the exact number, I will need to.
So we've done 200,000, and that one's going to be put on the back burner?
No, because we have the basis for that. What we want to do is we want to hire the engineering firm back. There are people that retired from this firm already, so we're going to hire the firm who has the drawings, who have the as-built, who have all of the stuff. Take a look at it, prepare a presentation to come back before the town council, go through all the history in that, and if the town council, if the funding's available, and the town council says, let's go with option 1, 2, 4, whatever option that they select, then we will present, then we'll move forward with the preliminary engineering work, which will give us a cost estimate that we can go for funding. And the funding we're looking usually at that level is not an annual appropriation, it is a bonded project.
I just want to be clear in this, Gary.
Right.
We've spent $200,000.
Right.
To review this bridge, do the engineering on it.
Correct.
Now we're going to dust it off.
Correct.
And they're going to provide us with estimates for $300,000.
They're up to $300,000. They're going to provide us with the preliminary engineering work that'll be detailed enough. It won't be the final drawings, but it'll be what we need to carry to referendum. This is what we have done on every other project. There's several phases. We'll go and identify the different options, seek approval for the funding, then go to the next phase, which is prepare the estimate for the bond referendum, which is you have to have drawings detailed enough to know your quantity estimates, and then also with in the different items that we need to go. If there's different grant programs out there, if you want to go with a federal bridge grant, I don't know if they're available anymore. The road has to be over 30 feet wide if you want to get grant funded. There's no more local bridge funding from the state. So bottom line is to carry that forward as we've done with all of our projects is get it to a point where we have a good cost estimate with some confidence that we can then go present it to the town council. If they want to go to bond referendum, then it follows the process. Because right now we have a range of about $3.5 to $5 million.
So basically, will you be coming back next year for some more funding for engineering study?
No, we'd be coming back for a bond referendum, which would be the final design plans,
Okay.
which is the bid specifications, and construction.
And you're estimating, off the top of your head now, about $3 million for the project?
$3.5 to $5 million for the project.
And we're spending, what, almost 15% for engineering study?
It's more than a study. There will be design drawings. There'll be an estimate. There will be plans that someone can look at, and some estimator can pull numbers off of, which is doing their costing for the different materials.
Okay, thank you.
So my understanding is that on March 26th, that you told the Planning Commission the bridge was being designed for 9 inches of sea level rise by
Correct.
2050.
Correct.
And the Connecticut Institute on Resilience and Climate Adaptation, that's located where I work at Avery Point, has basically stated they expect 20 inches of sea level rise by that date. And most other estimates are in the 1 to 2 meter range, actually. So my question is, are you actually designing for sea level rise? And what's the purpose of spending this much money, if it might be invalidated, before you even get this bridge up and running?
With the information we had back in 2013, there appeared to have been a 9-inch sea level rise there. I would have to go back through the study and on what they based it on, but what we want to do is get the right number. Now, I know that for the causeway itself, during the storm events, we're designing it so the waves and the water will go over the road, and then once the event's over, it flows back, because there's no way of raising that causeway high enough without taking properties, because we'd be what we call burying the abutting properties. The driveways wouldn't work into the existing roadway that we'd have there. But what we want to use is the correct numbers, but back then it was 9 inches, so that's the thing that stuck in my mind, but we will work to whatever the correct number is.
So what is your planning horizon then for this? Like, what kind of future are you looking at in the future?
It's in the report. I don't have the report with me, but that's one thing we want to go over and look at is go back to what we had determined back then, and if there's something wrong, then it's going to have to be designed, which means the abutments are going to have to be higher, the approaches greater, because you're correct, we don't want to build something with a 50-year life that's going to be flooded in 35 or 40 years. Second, any of the grants that we would apply for would not give us any grant money, and if it's our own money, it's just wasted. So we want to go back and look at all that, but that's what was done back then, and we'll have to take a look at why our consultant came up with that number versus the rise that with I'm going to call the new information has.
Representative Marshall?
If this capital improvement was not funded, what would be the next steps for this project?
We kick the can down the road one more time. It is poor right now. Then it goes, the state inspects this bridge every 2 years with state inspectors. That's nice. They do it to the town. It's free. It could get into serious, which is what the chairman has said, is loss of section, local failures are possible, rehabilitation or repair required immediately. There could be a load limit placed on it. Then it goes critical, of course, failure, and then it has failed. If the bridge fails, we have several options. One is immediately, the option is by either foot traffic or small, what we call gators, small vehicles could get over that pedestrian path that goes into Haley Farm. There's a bike path back there. We could use that. So emergency-wise, fine. Whatever fire apparatus they have in Groton Long Point stays there. If you know if there was a failure, you could get maybe equipment over and stage it on the other side. There are portable bridges that you can get. They're costly, and they're not going to show up the next day. They're going to show up in the next week or so. So we could put what they call a panel bridge over that section there. It's expensive. They have them throughout the country. So after that, then it'll be an emergency some sort of emergency appropriations. The worst thing could happen is we could have a load limit. So moving vans can't go in and out. They have to be smaller trucks. Fuel oil deliveries, food deliveries to the stuff down there, the marinas that take boats in down there would all be impacted. It's our only way in and out of that location. We started this project, as we had said, back, and the study was completed in 2013. And at the point of time, at $3.5 to $5 million, is the bridge still standing? Is it still rated the same? Absolutely. It is my duty to bring infrastructure up to both the town council and the RTM for funding. Can the Public Works Department make any temporary repairs on it? That'd be what, if the state did come up with something, maybe there's a supplemental appropriation for some temporary repairs. But it's not as simple as putting a metal plate over it, or putting a part of a metal beam rail against it. It's structural underneath.
So if this initiative was funded half, for example, would you be able to start the ball rolling?
We could get the ball rolling. We would have to stop at that point. The $300,000 was, excuse me, I'm getting over a cold, was a point of bringing it up to the preliminary plans. We could bring it up, I hate to use the words, we'll dust off the old study, get everyone on board. Groton Long Point has taken a look at the study again. Now, we did involve Groton Long Point through this whole process. We had a couple meetings down there that were public information meetings, invited all the public in for it. Getting the input, and we'll carry it through as far as our funding will, and then present it back out to the council and the RTM, that this is the point where we're at, this is what the number is, and it'll be more than a guess on what the price will be, but it'll be less than where we usually have taken a project to go to bonding.
Okay. I move 150,000.
All right, we have a motion on the floor, $150,000, Groton Long Point Bridge reconstruction. Representative Bordelon, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. So whatever number is approved, this option 2 doesn't necessarily apply, right? That we're not agreeing to option 2 necessarily with this amount.
Correct. It was my statement going back to there's a new town council to go back, present all the options we have identified to them, and then they'll make the selection.
So the new options would possibly be under this new evaluation for the, and then new options would be brought up. Because my concern is this option here talks about boardwalk, all this other stuff. If it's truly just the infrastructure, then we need to fix the infrastructure and make it passable for vehicles, because we are in a tight budget. So also in September, this bridge will be back up for reevaluation, and the state's coming back in. So I also think that $150,000 is appropriate. Let's see what happens in September. The bridge has remained stable. There's several levels before it's technically at the critical status. It seems like there's more information to be had. I'd like some more information regarding the sea levels that you can report back to us. I think that would be very helpful. I really want to make sure that whatever we're doing, this bridge has been there since 1938 or 34, and it's lasted us this long. So we really want to make sure what we're doing is going to have a lasting integrity to the taxpayers and the people that live at Groton Long Point. So I just have concerns about the option that's in here and how we move forward. I think we need more information. We're reading a CIP from a study from 2013 where we spent a ton of money on, and I feel like there's missing information. So I think that it would be appropriate to either move this completely or look at the lower number.
Representative Newsom, did you have your hand up?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. So we're basically stuck with this one firm, right? Because they already did some of the work. So if we went to anybody else, they would just have to recreate everything from scratch, right?
It is my recommendation that we continue with the same firm. They have done all of the design work. There's people that are still there that have done this work. We own some of and the town owns the report, but they don't own the data behind it. Any other firm that comes out and takes a look at it would be the same thing. They would want to see the original plans, do their own calculations because their name is on it instead of somebody else's. So my recommendation is going back to AECOM, which is over a 6,000 member firm worldwide. I mean, they are bridge builders. So my recommendation is go back. And we just don't go back and ask, hey, we have X number of dollars, what can you do for us? We prepare a scope of service that we feel that is what we need to carry the project through. We'll get prices from them. We do compare those to other prices that we know of. We talk to the state DOT on what they feel, you know, what prices they're getting. So we're just not out there just driving blind. We sit there and we take a look at what we have. But my recommendation is going back to AECOM, who has the data in their database.
Representative Casper?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. As one of those who would be directly affected by the failure of the bridge, and I believe the last two major storms we had made me think the bridge might not be there. Also the pedestrian bridge that's currently over the railroad tracks, I heard reports that it's not in good shape and would have to be rebuilt to allow any vehicle to pass over it safely. Is that true?
What I can do is I can talk to Amtrak, who owns the bridge. I know there's some items on top of the bridge. There's some metal tubing in that has deteriorated, but I don't believe it's any structural component. But the light vehicles we're talking about is really those four-wheel drive, what we call gators.
Yeah.
They're a modified golf cart. So it's nothing large going over there. So if a person did have a medical emergency, from once that you get them there, you take them over in the gurney or on the cart, and there'll be an ambulance waiting on the other side. Now, the bike path that we do have down there, we just had recently rebuilt, and it's the Groton Utilities right-of-way for the power line inspector. So that can handle heavy vehicles that would exit through the wastewater treatment plant. So it's just that one portion across Amtrak. At least we can get across there without having any issues with the trains. But that's the only access into the location.
Yeah, that would severely, both neighborhoods would be severely impacted.
Oh, absolutely.
By essentially, we'd have to create a parking lot on the other side in Haley Farm, and we'd have to walk over the bridge and get in our cars and, go down to Johnson's Hardware or Big Y, and then do the same thing coming back. And I think, everyone's talking about 500,000, 500,000. The fact is that it's a $3.5 to $5 million project, and it should have been done already. That bridge is 80 years old, and frankly, it looks it. And I just think, there's a substantial tax base over there that it will be affected if that bridge goes down. Thank you.
Representative McDermott?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Gary, do we have any numbers as far as if we have to put 20 to 40 inches of bridge there, what happens to Groton Long Point? Do we have any numbers at all as to that kind of a sea level rise? I mean, we saw what happened to Willow Point over in West Mystic with Hurricane Sandy. It was under 6.5 feet of water.
That I haven't seen that mapping in that, so we'd have to take a look at it. I mean, there's issues there, but one, yeah, I don't know what's left of if you get a 50 inch, or if we get that much of a rise. How much is Groton Long Point or Mumford Cove is left?
If we haven't done that, I'd certainly suggest that we start that process.
The state actually has a website that models these things with different sea level rise scenarios. The real key is storm surge. It's not so much the sea level rise, it's the storm surge with the sea level rise.
Yes, thank you.
Representative Frickman.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. So I'm actually, I have a couple concerns. One is, one of the town councilors who actually lives on Groton Long Point voted against this and actually moved 0, or voted against the number. So, and I feel like as though we're rushing this, and I think there's a possibility we could get at least 1 or 2 more years before we had to move on this. So I'm going to move a new number. I'm going to move 0.
Second.
So we have a number on the floor, 300,000, I mean, 0, and it's been seconded. Did you want to, you've spoken?
I kind of said my reasoning
Okay,
beforehand.
that's fine. I have Representative Powers next, if you still want to.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Gary, quick question. How does it impact the emergency evacuation plan for that part of the town? Do you know?
As being up in the EOC and our last events that we had, that's the only way in and out. Period. It's either that, or if that bridge falls down, then we're into some sort of a ferry system of boats going back and forth from, I suppose, up from marina to a marina. It is literally the only way in and out. There is, as I said, we can get panel bridges in, but if there's an issue throughout the country or throughout a region where there's bridges that are washed out, those panel bridges become a premium. You know, FEMA can bring them in, but they only have so many of them. So that's part of the plan. It's not only for the people down there, but it's for the emergency management, and it's also for the commerce in the area.
My other question is this. If we were to turn around and just put 0 there, how many more years would it add to the project? And do you have any forecast as to the cost of the bridge? As time goes on, all of these projects cost more and more and more money. Well,
right now, and we're seeing with our construction manager for the schools, and because we are projecting out, the construction costs are going to about 4.88% is projected over the next year. So if you do a $3 million bridge, $4 million bridge, that's the percentage that it's going up. That they are projecting for building projects. With the current, if there's steel involved or if there's any other tariffs that are involved, it could be even higher than that. And the thing is not only the design work, it's the permitting. After the permitting, then we have to get the funding from the town council and the RTM. Now, there could be local appropriations, but I've never seen a $2 million, a $1 million, $2 million, or $3 any project this large that isn't through a bond referendum. Through a bond referendum is usually in November. That's the cheapest place to have a referendum because there's other voting going on. There has been special referendums, but they cost the town an extra, a substantial sum of money to put an extra referendum out there. So it's a planning process. Environmental permitting will be over a year. So if you add all that stuff up there, if the bridge is here now, and that's when you should be planning the replacement, not when it's failed.
Correct. Okay, thank you very much.
Representative Whitehouse, you had your hand up. Do you still want to take the floor?
All right, since I don't know much about building bridges, sometimes I feel like someone's trying to sell me one, but so the 300,000 plus we already did 200,000, is it 500,000 because we split it up so much, or is that just what it would always normally cost to engineer a bridge like this?
it's not only the engineering of the bridge, it's to look at all the options that we had up front. I mean, some of the options, and that was Councilor Marasek, we wanted to, his issue was that can we open the throat of the bridge up? Can we make it wider? Can we put it on piles? So we went through some of the analysis of what was there. We took a look at what the causeway was, the engineer did, and what the environmental issues that we would have to open it wider. It was just the environmental permitting and the studies that would need to be done were so huge, the opening stays the same. So we went through all of those options, and we looked at the different fundings from the federal bridge funding to local bridge funding, which the town would get the bigger bang for the grant dollar. It was the federal bridge funds. I don't think those are available anymore. They may be coming down the line with some other method or some other title to them. So we had looked at that. We looked at then the construction sequencing. So we added all those things together. You know, there were walkers in the area. Do we want to have a separate sidewalk on one side or both sides? Do we want to provide for a pedestrian crossing during construction? Because it's going to be 2 years. We're going to do half a lane, half the bridge. So one lane will be alternating traffic, just like it was done in Stonington on Route 1, done up on Route 2 in Preston, when the bridge work was done. So there's alternating, and because we don't want to do it during the summer, that's when the peak traffic's down there, so it'll be late fall. Don't want to do it in cold winter because it costs more money. So we were taking a look at all, so that's the upfront planning work that was done, and I hope we did the right sea level rise stuff, but we may have one storm surge and maybe sea level, so I'll look at that. So we looked at all of that stuff up front. The number that sticks into my head is it was under $200,000, but I could get that number. We have it, just I don't have it with me. The next step was to carry it through those detailed preliminary designs where you can pull quantities off of, put a schedule to it, and then project forward what the escalation of construction costs would be, and then send it out to the public.
Okay,
Or
so
back to you guys and out to the public.
So this isn't a matter of it was 200 and we waited too long, and so now I need to spend more. It would always have been 200 and then 300 to get the plans.
About
and then
300 to get the plans, and these plans aren't thrown away. I mean, if the funding was for the final design, because why would you have a final design if you're not going to build it? Final design and construction dollars, then you take these are done. Now you start doing the really detailed design. You're calling out the nut and the bolt. Let's do a little bit more. The specifications are put together into a bid document. And of course you do the final permitting.
And is there a serious concern this bridge could be condemned or have weight limit within the next year, or?
They're going to inspect it again this year. We haven't seen any parts missing, but I mean, we do look around at it. We haven't seen any big holes in the bridge deck or anything, but I don't know what structurally they'll come up with. It would be a surprise that a bridge goes from here to an immediate failure, but we'll see that. And if that's the portion, then we'll have to come take a look at what options we have. If there's no, even if the excuse me, the money was made available and we would continue with the design and there was an issue, we may have to, we would evaluate it and say, is there a temporary fix that we need to have to continue this through the process?
Well, I guess my question is, how urgent is it this be done now?
If I could predict that, I think I'd have another job somewheres because we can't. I mean, we're using the bridge inspection in the inspection reports. We have been watching it. As a public works department, we've identified it as part of our infrastructure. That's critical, and it needs to be replaced.
Last question: if we did the 150, which is the halfway, would that potentially disrupt the engineering study in a way that would cost us more, or would that not be a problem?
What we wouldn't. My feeling is what we wouldn't have is those, go back to the detailed preliminary engineering plans that we could do a detailed cost estimate off of for a bond referendum. There'd be more of an estimating. We think it costs, it could be within this range, and we could bring it back to the council and the RTM if they feel comfortable at a bond referendum, us going with that type of work being done and being estimated forward, so. Excuse me.
Representative Newsom, did you have your hand up?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. So essentially what we're looking at is this. Do we want to roll the dice? Now we think the bridge will be okay, and it seems to be okay. Some of the things we don't know is there have been bridge failures across the country. I imagine that the state bridge inspectors are going to be much more vigilant these days than they have been in the past. We're talking about having to medevac people out in golf carts. Somebody gets hurt. I mean, this is absurd. Unfortunately, we're not bridge engineers, right? So we can't look at this thing and go, that's fine. But what we do know is that for 5 years now, we've kicked this can down the road. Even if we just get started with the 150,000, and I really don't support that, because this is going to be 5 years from now before this bridge gets built. So if something happens in between, a serious storm, something happen, who knows, right? Who knows what could happen? You know, we could, if we're not at least starting to get this project rolling, I'm concerned that that on the day something does happen, we're going to be liable. I think I understand the need to save money, but I hate the idea of having to do a Dunkirk-like, you know, send the boats over from the other marina to go pick people up and get them out of there. That's crazy. I would, you know, if 300,000, if things, and we have the bridge inspection coming in September, and the work that's being done for that $300,000, we know we're going to have to do at some point. It's not like if we don't do it now, we'll never have to do it. It's got to be done. And as the director said, we can put those plans on the shelf. And if if in September the bridge still looks great, maybe we can put off going further for a year or two. But we don't know that. And so that's the big gamble. I would recommend spending the $300,000 to at least get started and start pushing us in the right direction.
Representative Bordelon?
So thank you, Madam Moderator. From start to finish, if this money was approved, how long for completion are we talking? I heard some people say 5, I've heard people say 7. What is the actual, what are we talking for timeline?
We have to engage the engineering firm who would complete the work. I would hope that we would have something by the summer, late summer, early fall of 2019, which means coming back to this is what this is the option we want to do, this is the price, and now we are having the cost estimate, and then the determination then is whether we include it into the next year's capital improvement program for bond referendum in November of 2020.
And then once they got that, how long would it take to build the bridge?
About another year for design and permitting, 2 years to build the bridge. In a good.
So we're looking about 4 years total.
Correct.
So would it be appropriate then to wait for the inspection in September and let's talk numbers then? I think that's, to me, sounds appropriate. If we see, if it stays as it has, like it has for the last few inspections, nothing, we've been dealing with this for a while now, like everything here. And I agree, I do not want to jeopardize the safety of anybody, but I feel the responsible thing to do, we've already done a study on this. Let's check out that inspection in September. Come back to the governing body and move a number of 0 and reassess. We could always look at it then. I just think it would be responsible. So we have a time frame and a 4-year plan and all this other stuff, but it just seems to me that we need more information. I feel like we're lacking a lot of the information. And with the information that you already did from that study, you're saying you cannot apply for federal anything yet because you need more of a much more detailed study.
Correct.
So there's nothing you can do with that.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Representative Wells?
Well, I'd like to thank Director Schneider. He's been, his department's been very forthcoming. I had a couple of questions. They got the information I wanted, and then they called back the next day with more. So they're not hiding anything. And I got, and actually I've warmed considerably towards the Groton Long Point Bridge. I'm probably in Rick Marasovich's camp right now. would like to see it raised to the height, well, no higher than the average height of Groton Long Point. I mean, we don't need a bridge to nowhere. If that goes under, then we don't need the bridge. But one of the things that troubled me as, you know, as a sort of a scientist here is that it said it was necessitated by the deteriorating condition. Last inspected rated the bridge as poor. And so I looked at the last inspection, which they provided for me. And that was, and it was indeed an overall rating of 4. They rate older bridges on a scale up to 7. 7 is the best you can get with an old bridge. And the poor overall rating was 4. I assume the weakest link determines the overall rating. The deck rating was 4, also poor. Superstructure was poor. However, the substructure was rated satisfactory, and the channel was rated 7, which was good. So, and they said no need for additional inspections, inspections every 2 years. They didn't feel they needed to come back in a year to inspect the bridge. And then I looked at the report, which is available, by the way, GrotonLongPointBridge.com. All one word. You can find the 2012 state inspection there. So I went back and looked at that. In 2016, it was rated 4. In 2012, the overall rating was 4 or poor. The deck was also rated as 4 and poor. And the superstructure, same. However, the substructure was rated as 5 in 2012. It seems to have improved with time, and the same with the channel. So if you do pseudoscience and you connect a couple of data points, the bridge will fix itself in about 7 years. So, you know, I think if I was going to, it at least indicates that the thing is stable. And if I were going to make a case for this thing is, you know, we got to hurry up and do something quick because it's going down the tubes, I would like to go back, you know, more than 4 years, and I'd like to wait for September. You know, it's not going to go from poor to we got to close this bridge. As far as the escape routes go, there is a sea ambulance which hauls people in emergency things. No, I'm true. For people with boats, if you have a heart attack, they will whisk you to New London. And I haven't gone all the way, but I have walked the most excellent dirt road from Bluff Point's parking lot past the head of Mumford Cove. I don't know how far, you know, beyond that, whether there's skulls on sticks over there, but it's a better road than they have that you'd have to take going into Bluff Point. And so there is a road from Bluff Point, at least past the top of Mumford Cove, and I didn't go any further than that. And I also noted there are a lot of pictures provided with these reports, and it says letters sent to town on different things. And I drove down and I noticed the pictures of the deck, which they said, look how terrible this is, and I drive by and lo and behold, the town has fixed it. A couple of other things, while I have you here, there are 4 drains, and each inspection report says they're 100% plugged. What's that? It seems like, you know, you roto-rooter and clean the drain out. Duh.
Don't know. I'll take that as a comment, and I'll make a note of that, and we'll go out there and see what we can.
I don't know if it's going to
clear.
make or break
I
anything.
seriously don't know. I know the bridge seals or the joints are failing, but again, we go from what the state has told us on a 2016 report. You're right. So that's why we're saying the superstructure, the support, the walls and that, they're good. Some repairs, we're going to leave them. We don't have to take those away. But to put a new bridge in over the top may mean pilings have to be installed in back of that to support the new structure. So it's all in that report, and it's we do have it up at Public Works, and we'll make sure it's online and it's at the right location.
It's an interesting report. Actually, you know, it actually warmed me to the bridge.
I just want to remind everyone that we should keep our comments brief because there's 29 of us. And we all apparently want to speak on this issue. Sorry.
Thank you, Madam
Representative Mello Miller. I have a long list here.
Thank you. So I want to just ask really quick? You said projected construction costs were going up 4.88% a year. Was that correct?
That's what, and that's coming from a construction management firm who builds structures, who build buildings.
Okay, so I did some math on the lowest projection for the bridge, which was, you said the bridge was 3.5 to 5 million, correct?
Depending upon the options, but that's correct.
So at the lowest number of 3.5 million, if construction costs are going up 4.88%, and someone else can correct my math here, I think it's correct, that would mean that every year that we put off with this bridge, we are adding another $170,800 to taxpayers to repair the bridge. So that's $170,800, or sorry, yeah, I said that correctly, at least. And then every year it would go up because it would go up for the percentage of the new number. So that being said, if we put this off, also at the last budget meeting when we were talking about Groton Long Point, we talked about the residents and the population. And the population was about 508 full-time residents, but it goes up to 6,000 seasonally. So that means that we have 6,000 additional cars, additional people walking through seasonally. And maybe we're at a level 4 right now, but there's no telling with that amount of traffic how severely it can go up. Also, considering the amount of storms we've had, you might have one storm where if we're at a level 4, it would be very easy to push us over. And then one more thing I actually had a question was, how many bridges in Groton have issues right now? Can you tell me?
I can tell you I closed 2 of them, and there's a third one out there. One is Quaker Farm Road, where we have it's actually twin corrugated metal culverts that have delaminated itself in the bridge decking, so I closed that road. There was a settlement there. We all know of the North Stonington Road Bridge that was out for several years now. We're still trying to get funding for that. There's a third bridge that's on River Road. And Groton is lucky. Most of our bridges are more culverts than a bridge like such as this. Other communities have numerous bridges. Third set of culverts that we have is on River Road by Binless. We have plates over those corrugated metal pipes because the tops have rusted off of those, and we're watching that road. The Meridian Street Bridge is one of our...
I don't think we really need to recap all the bridges in Groton at this point. I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, I wasn't asking. I was just asking how many bridges are closed or are at a level in numerical value, not which bridges in particular, but in numerical value, how many bridges are at this level or worse right now that are looking for repair, that are needing repair?
2 that are closed, and that's in a town, North Stonington Road, we're trying to get the funding for that. The state pulled the funding for the local bridge on that. For Quaker Farm Road, I have not presented my report to the town council whether that bridge should even be reopened. And the other one we are watching. So the other bridges that we have are all inspected by the state. This is the worst bridge that we own in the town of Groton.
And that was going to be my question, is it, in your opinion, this of the bridges is the worst bridge? And I'm assuming is the most, considering with the population dense, because it is one way in, one way out.
Correct. There is one other bridge, and another bridge is under, it's down in Noank, which is the Mosher Avenue Bridge over Amtrak. But that is a state-maintained bridge. They will be replacing that with state funds, but it's on a local road. But that's a state project, no local funding.
Thank you.
Representative Casper?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I just really hope we move forward with the 300,000. The 150,000 doesn't buy enough engineering to get plans. And we've kicked this can down the road for quite a few years now, and you just can't keep kicking the can down the road. You have to, it's costing you money. It's pay me now or pay me later. If it affected you as personally as it does me, you would vote for it. But in general, you just can't cut off that many people. and expect them to go through a hardship. I mean, to me, it's not really a storm. It's just one heavy truck with following Tom Go instructions driving over that bridge. It can bring it down.
All right, I'm just going to ask everyone to be brief and not repetitive and kind of say unique comments on this at this point. Representative Merritt.
Yes, thank you, Madam Moderator. I will be brief. I don't think 150 is going to cut this, and the 300,000 was projected in good faith, and we should think of that in the project that has to be done. Like everybody else has said, down the road, it's going to start costing more.
Thank you. Representative Gustafson.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I just have a couple quick points. At the schedule now, it'll be like 85 years old by the time construction starts. When it was built, the vehicles weren't as heavy as they are today. You could have one storm in a fall that pushes it past a critical level. To me, it's a public safety issue. I don't know why you would want to take a chance with that. And I agree with Representative Newsom on the 300,000 amount. Thank you.
Representative Monahan.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I totally endorse Representative Newsom's comments. The bridge is 84 years old. Taking 4 years to do it is not an emergency. It's time to do it, and it's also time to call the question.
Is there a second? Okay, we have a motion on the floor to call the question. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? So it carries 27. I voted with the majority. 27 in favor, I believe, 2 opposed, no abstentions. So we have a number on the floor for account CIP 1C, the Groton Long Point Bridge reconstruction, and that's 0. All in favor, raise your hand.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
It's 0. Any abstentions? Oh, any opposed? Sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Okay. Any abstentions? 3 in favor, 26 opposed. So that motion fails. We have another number on the floor, 150,000. All in favor? I have my hand up. All opposed, raise your hand. Any abstentions? 10 in favor, 19 opposed, no abstentions. That motion fails. So we have another number on the floor, 300,000. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Do you see my hand? What? 10 in favor and 19 opposed? 10 in favor, 19 opposed, no abstentions. No, sorry. You have to just tell me, I'm sorry, I don't know what you're doing over there. 19 in favor, 10 opposed, no abstentions. If you could tell me in the right order, that would be really helpful. Thank you. All right, so we can move on.
This next one will be much easier. Motion passes. Next. CIP 3C, Sidewalks, Mystic Streetscape, Phase 2, page 218 in your budget book. Motion was made for $12,000 for Chairman Newsom, seconded by Representative Massett. This is the figure passed by the council by a vote of 9 to 0 to 0. The CIP is to close out the books on Phase 2. This money has already been paid and should have been reimbursed by the state. However, in order to balance the books, a transfer has to be made from the general fund to the capital reserve fund to replace the money that has already been spent. Representative Wells asked about Phase 3. It was stated that the money for Phase 3 had already been appropriated by the Town Council and RTM. We're still waiting for the state to provide their share of the project. A vote was taken for CIP 3C, Mystic Streetscape Phase 2, for $12,000 in favor of Representatives Newsom, Sini, Massett, Merritt, Stanford, and Wells. None opposed, no abstentions. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Moderator, I'd like to make a motion for $12,000 for CIP 3C, Sidewalks, Mystic Streetscape Phase 2.
Second.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for 3C CIP Mystic Streetscapes Phase 2. It's been seconded, $12,000. Any discussion? All right, seeing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? That motion passes 29 in favor, none opposed, no abstentions. So you were correct, Representative Newsom. We're on a roll.
Next account is CIP 6K. CIP 6K, Public Buildings, Golf Course Facility Clubhouse, page 223 in your book. Motion for $35,000 was made for CIP 6K, Golf Course Clubhouse by Chairman Newsom, seconded by Representative Stanford. This was the figure passed by the Town Council by a vote of 9-0 to 0 at the April 17th meeting. This is an engineering estimate to replace the deteriorated front steps and ramp with ADA compliant stairs and ramp. The steps are in disrepair and too deteriorated to fix and represent a safety liability. A motion for $25,000 for CIP 6K was made by Representative Sini and seconded by Representative Massett. Representative Sini felt that sufficient work could be done for less money. Representative Stanford asked when that work would be done. The director said it would occur over 8 weeks in February and March of next year. Representative Merritt said he was uncomfortable paying so much for stairs and the ramp. A vote was taken on the first amended figure of $25,000 for CIP 6K, Golf Course Clubhouse. There were 2 in favor, Sini and Merritt, 4 opposed, Newsom, Massett, Stanford, and Wells. No abstentions. The motion fails 4 to 0. The vote was taken on the main motion for $35,000 for CIP 6K. The vote was 4 in favor, Newsom, Massett, Stanford, and Wells, 2 opposed, Sini and Merritt, and no abstentions. The motion passes. Madam Moderator, I'd like to make a motion for $35,000 for CIP 6K, Golf Course Clubhouse.
Second. All right, we have a motion on the floor, and it's been seconded for the Golf Course Facilities Clubhouse renovation, I don't know what you want to call it, for $35,000. Any discussion? Representative Kwiatkowski?
Thank you. We keep hearing that the golf course is self-funding. Well, it's not. This is a golf course. It's something that's nice to have. We don't need a golf course. And we have to ask ourselves with taxpayer dollars, is it a need or a want? And I don't think the taxpayers should be funding anything to do with the golf course. Several years ago, I spoke with the pro at the pro shop, and he told me that, he proudly told me that 80% of the members were from out of town, and they were not Groton residents. So I'd like to move another number, 0.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have another number on the floor. Is there any discussion? Representative Bordelon?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I think the $35,000, it's our building. We have to fix it. I mean, if somebody gets injured there, we're going to be paying a lot more than that. I've been there several times and see people struggle, people tripping. That deck is like rotting and needs to be painted like 10 years ago as well. But I also have concerns about the lack of handicap accessibility to major main parts of that building throughout. So I was just curious as to when the full handicap accessibility would be complete, so that that building is up to code.
This portion of the project will replace the, my word, substandard ADA access to the building itself. When the restaurant is closed, this is the only access into the building, so they'll have to make other accommodations if there's a golf course player that needed some assistance. Then I do believe the Golf Pro has that worked out with the owners of the restaurant, that you can get them in and out. The second portion of this, which is in the future, is that all the toilet facilities do not meet any sort of current code standards for ADA and accessibility. These are the toilet facilities that are off the restaurant. So there's two smaller ones that are in that little enclave right by the pro shop. So is there another portion of this? Yes.
So what you're saying is that we're making the ramp so they can get in, but they might not be able to use the bathroom.
There are old standard toilets there, so they are a little bit wider, but it doesn't have the 5-foot radius.
No.
It isn't to the current ADA code, which is retroactive. Have we had any complaints from people? No, we have not. That doesn't mean tomorrow someone will go on there, either fall because of an issue or something else, and then we would need to address those. But that is fairly expensive to gut those toilets and make them ADA compliant.
Right, and is that, let me just check, that's on here?
That is on here. That
Yeah.
is for FYE 20 to do the design to correct the building accessibility issues. And then it's about $250,000 to rip those toilets out. That's from an architect's estimate, to rip those toilets out and to put an access in, and also make them available for when the golf course is open, all the hours that the golf course is open, which is having an exterior, getting either more access through the restaurant to get to those toilets by opening up a front door, or by putting a ramp out back.
So the total number then, if we did this ramp as well as the handicap accessibility to make the building up to code for the restrooms, what number would that be?
Be about $350,000.
Thank you.
All right, Representative Whitehouse, did you have your hand up? Yeah.
All right. So my first question is, why does it cost as much to replace the toilets in this building as to build a house next to it? So like $300,000, I would have, it can buy you a decent house in Groton. So that seems like a lot of money to replace toilets.
It's not a, you're right. These are the numbers that are coming. We have to bid anything. So there's a bid price, there's wage rates. So you build a house next door, you're building it either with a builder that pays whatever he pays a living wage to his subs and himself. But anything that we build that's over $100,000 here is renovated or new work, and it's state wage rates. So we have that. We have $5 million insurance requirements, where the builder next door probably has $1 million, may carry $1 million. Don't know. So we have some of our own purchasing requirements, and it's state mandated on that. The insurance carriers, the insurance level limits are based on our exposure for our liabilities for the town. If you build a house next door, you may have a builder's quality fixture, which is the cheapest he can get to make it look nice, where we have a fixture that we will put in there that's supposed to last more than a couple years. So second, and also we will be working in a place that we know there's asbestos, and we know we do believe there's some lead piping in that building too. So bottom line is we have some of the environmental issues that we have there, whereas building the house next door. And it's always easier to build new than it is, build something new from scratch than it is to try to squeeze something in an existing building.
So part of the cost is that you have to tear it out first and then build something new in.
To tear it out, build it new back.
And the other thing I'd like to mention is, some liaison of the EDC. So we talk a lot about bringing people to Groton and getting more positive attention for Groton. So the fact that 80% of the people who are going to the golf course are not from Groton, I think argues for improving the golf course, because it is a draw into the town. And when someone comes into the town to visit the golf course, they might stop at downtown, which I've heard we moved it. But no, they might stop at downtown, maybe do a bit of shopping while they're there, maybe get gas, maybe get lunch, who knows? You know, anything that draws people into town, that's a positive thing, seems like a good thing to be investing in, especially for a relatively small sum. Thank you.
Representative Frickman?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I just had a question. Is the 35,000, is that an estimate from something we've already bidded out? Because it seems like a lot.
No, we haven't bid it out, but the town engineer who works for me, we have an engineering division in the Public Works Department, has taken a look at it. He's put an estimate together for demolition site work, framing materials. This does call for, and we'll bid out an option of using a composite wood decking and a PVC rail system. They last forever. That's what we're shooting for. We will bid it out with alternates, which would be pressure treated, both of those structures, and we'll take a look at what we have. So he did take a look at this. Part of this is that we need to go to the city of Groton. We do believe we can get an administrative site plan approval for this, but there'll be some building permit fees that have to be estimated in. They won't waive those fees for us, so we'll be paying building inspection fees, the building permit fees, and hopefully are no other requirements for site plan. There's site plan requirements that would apply to a project this small.
And this type of project is not something we could do ourselves?
No, this is beyond, not beyond a capability, but if we need it done in a timely manner, it's not a home project thing where you can start and stop. You need to rip it out and get it done.
Representative Melendez?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Just a quick question. What are the consequences, if any, to not being ADA compliant?
If somebody sues the town, if there's a claim against the town that they were denied access into the place or into any structure, and there's a whole process. Luckily, the town has been good at providing access into buildings and that, so it's really someone making that complaint. Is it safe? We will replace a rotted board, and we have. We'll replace the railings, we can screw them back together again. But it's getting to the point of time that this thing was put in, I think, 1985, when I first came into the town. And I'm getting old, the deck has gotten older, so.
Representative Bailey?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I was just questioning about possibly why wouldn't the Shinnecock Golf Course organization or somebody be invited here tonight to explain this situation. As of 2015, there was an approval for a head to be placed at, I think, the 9th hole or something like that. And it was $35,000.
The comfort
I've been corrected, 50. And I think if this was something important, that they would have prioritized that than that single head over there by the 9th hole. And the organization should show face over here to represent themselves when addressing us with the CIP. That would be highly recommendable in the future. Thank you very much. I'll be voting 0. Thank you.
Representative Marshall?
I'd like to move the question.
All right, we have a motion to move the question. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that motion passes. We have a number on the floor for 0 for account CIP 6K, and this is for the Golf Course Facilities Clubhouse. All in favor? Three. All opposed? Did you get those? Any abstentions?
3 in favor, 24 opposed.
3 in favor, 24 opposed, no abstentions. So that motion fails. We have $35,000 on the floor. Again, golf course facilities clubhouse renovation. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? So that's 24 in favor, 3 opposed, no abstentions. Thank you. So it is 10 o'clock, and I'd like to just get a sense from the body. We only have, well, actually, we have like seven more.
Madam Moderator, we have 7 CIP accounts, and I think people are pretty well worn out. We're going to have to schedule another night just to cover those 7 accounts, so it's not like we're going to get through most of them in the next hour. We still have some contentious ones.
All right, well,
We open up for discussion to see what we want to do.
sure, yeah, that's what I'm at, getting a sense of the body. I've heard one person, one representative. Let's hear another. Representative Bordelon, did you want to have us, Representative Katowski?
I say we recess and come back another night.
Representative Stanford? Representative Whitehouse?
I'd rather get more done later than come another night.
Representative Bailey? You can just...
I recommend just a vote, a simple vote for hands that would want to continue on.
Okay, we'll just do this as a straw man, because I would like to, because I did promise Scott we would vote, Representative Newsom, we would vote on the minutes that he has, so that portion of the minutes that he has, Representative Newsom.
I would just say that it's not a matter of whether or not we come back another night. There's 7 accounts we still have to do. We're going to come back another night. It's just a question of, do you want to do it tired or not?
All right, so...
And we can do the minutes
Let's just
at
do
the end.
Yeah, we'll do a minutes at the end. You don't mind waiting till the next?
I don't mind waiting.
So who is in favor of adjourning right now? This is not a binding vote or anything. It's just a sense. So if you're in favor of recessing at this point. And who's in favor of not recessing? Okay. So I have this sense that, I have a sense that you would like to recess, so is there a motion to, okay, so I guess we'll just recess then. And I'll see you on Wednesday at our regular meeting.